Welcome to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thrilled you've joined us today and truly appreciate your support. We're curious, where in the world are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Fractures. Vincent Keller stepped through the front door of his craftsman-style home, exhaustion settling in his bones. The hospital had been understaffed, and, as chief of cardiothoracic surgery, he performed 3 consecutive valve replacements. All he wanted was to see his family, his anchor in the storm of his demanding career. The house was unusually quiet. No television blaring cartoons, no patter of small feet. Vincent loosened his tie and set his leather briefcase on the entryway table. "Lily? Natalie?" he called out. His 6-year-old daughter appeared at the top of the stairs, her eyes wary rather than lighting up as they usually did. "Hi, Daddy," she said, her voice small. Vincent climbed the stairs, arms open for their nightly hug ritual. "Hey, Princess. How was school today?" Lily took a step back, clutching her stuffed rabbit tighter. "Mommy says you make her cry." The words hit him like a bucket of ice water. Before he could respond, Melissa appeared behind Lily, her hand protectively on their daughter's shoulder. "Come on, sweetie. Bath time," Melissa said, her voice warm for Lily but her eyes cold when they met Vincent's. She pulled Lily close. "We need to protect ourselves," she whispered, loud enough for Vincent to hear. "Melissa, what's going on?" Vincent asked, bewildered. "Ask your lawyer," she replied, ushering Lily to the bathroom and shutting the door with a decisive click. Vincent stood frozen in the hallway, his mind racing. Things had been tense between them for months. Melissa's increasing distance, her late nights working, the password suddenly appearing on her phone, but he'd attributed it to the natural ebb and flow of a 12-year marriage. He'd been working long hours himself, sometimes sleeping at the hospital between difficult cases. He retreated to his home office, pouring a finger of bourbon. Something was very wrong. The next morning, Vincent woke early after a restless night on the office couch. When he opened the front door to retrieve the newspaper, he found an envelope taped to the door. Inside was a restraining order prohibiting him from coming within 100 feet of Melissa and Lily, effective immediately. The document claimed pattern of intimidation and emotional abuse. Vincent's hand trembled. He'd never raised his voice to Melissa, let alone his hand. His phone buzzed, the hospital. A scheduled surgery needed his attention. Dazed, he read the restraining order once more before placing it on his desk. He'd have to deal with this later. What happened next would change everything. 3 days later, after sleeping in on-call rooms and operating on automatic pilot, Vincent sat across from Beverly Scott, the family law attorney recommended by a colleague. "This is a coordinated attack, Vincent," Beverly said, her tone frank. "The timing, the allegations, she's been planning this. I'm going to file a counterpetition, but I need to ask, is there anything she could use against you? Anything at all?" Vincent shook his head. "Nothing. I work long hours, but I'm a good father. I've never hurt them." Beverly's expression softened slightly. "Someone's coaching her. These tactics are too sophisticated." As Vincent left the attorney's office, his phone vibrated with a text message from an unknown number. "If you want to know what really happened, meet me at Riverside Park near the boathouse. 5 p.m. today." Vincent stared at the message. It could be a trap, but he needed answers. At precisely 5 p.m., Vincent sat on a bench facing the water. A woman approached, Diane Freeman, Melissa's colleague from the real estate office where she worked part-time. "I'm sorry about all this," Diane said without preamble. "Melissa's been seeing someone. My husband and I ran into them at Salvatore's 2 weeks ago. They didn't see us." Vincent's world tilted. "Who?" "Preston Doyle, the owner of her real estate firm." Diane handed him her phone, showing a photo she'd discreetly taken at the restaurant. Melissa and a silver-haired man, heads close together, fingers intertwined on the table. "Preston's been divorced 3 times, Diane continued. "Each time, he managed to paint his ex-wives as unstable. He's charming, manipulative, and very, very rich." She hesitated. "There's more. Preston's firm is just a front. His real money comes from property development, and some of his methods aren't exactly above board." Vincent stared at the photo, ice forming in his veins. "Why are you telling me this?" Because Preston ruined my sister's life the same way. And because I have a daughter too. Diane stood. Be careful, Vincent. Preston has friends in high places. As she walked away, Vincent remained on the bench, watching the sunset bleed across the water. The shock of betrayal crystallized into something harder, colder. He wouldn't just fight back. He would dismantle every piece of the life they were trying to build on the ruins of his. Chapter 2. Evidence. For the next 2 weeks, Vincent lived like a ghost in his own life. He operated, made rounds, and counseled patients, all while gathering information. He hired Travis Reynolds, a private investigator recommended by Beverly, who documented Melissa and Preston's meetings, their kisses in parked cars, the nights Lily was left with a babysitter while her mother was at Preston's lakeside mansion. Vincent's phone rang as he was leaving the hospital. It was Beverly. We need to talk. In person, she said, her voice tight. My office, 1 hour. When he arrived, Beverly wasn't alone. A man in his early 60s with a weathered face sat beside her desk. This is Detective Harris Walcott, retired, Beverly introduced him. He's been helping me look into Preston Doyle. Walcott's handshake was firm. Dr. Keller, I've spent 30 years investigating white-collar crime. Doyle's been on my radar for a long time. He's clever, never leaves fingerprints. What does this have to do with my wife and daughter? Vincent asked. Preston doesn't just seduce women, Beverly explained. He recruits them, gets them to do his dirty work while he maintains plausible deniability. Walcott placed a file on the desk. These are records of suspicious property transactions over the last 5 years. Each involve a different woman close to Doyle. Each woman later claimed abuse by her husband. Each husband was systematically destroyed, financially, professionally, personally. Vincent flipped through the file, his surgeon's hands steady despite the fury building inside him. And Melissa? What's her role? Your wife works in zoning at the city planning office 3 days a week, Walcott said. Her real estate license is just cover. She has access to information about upcoming development plans. That's gold to someone like Doyle. There's something else, Beverly added. The judge who signed your restraining order? He and Doyle are golf buddies. Vincent closed the file. What do they want? Your land, Walcott said simply. That 5-acre property you inherited from your grandfather. It's the missing piece in Doyle's new development project. Vincent remembered the lakefront land his grandfather had left him. Pristine forest with a small cabin where he'd planned to teach Lily to fish when she was older. How do we fight this? Vincent asked. Beverly and Walcott exchanged glances. Legally, it's going to be an uphill battle, Beverly admitted. The system is stacked in their favor right now. Then we fight differently, Vincent said, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. I want everything you have on Doyle. Every connection, every weakness. That night, alone in a sterile hotel room, Vincent spread the files across the bed. Photographs, financial records, and background reports on Preston Doyle. 62 years old, self-made millionaire, political connections, 3 ex-wives who'd signed ironclad NDAs after their divorces. His phone buzzed with an email notification from Travis. Attached was a video file, security footage from Vincent's own home, showing Melissa going through his office, photographing documents, copying files from his computer. The final piece clicked into place. The restraining order wasn't just about isolating him from Lily. It was about keeping him away from his own records while they searched for something. Vincent picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in 15 years. Anthony? It's Vincent Keller. I need a call in that favor. Anthony Russo had been Vincent's first patient as a cardiothoracic fellow, a procedure to repair a dissected aorta that should have killed him. Now Anthony owned several nightclubs and had connections that stretched beyond the legitimate business world. Doc, Anthony's gruff voice answered. I was wondering when you'd call. Whatever you need. Information, for now, Vincent said, on a man named Preston Doyle. Give me 48 hours, Anthony replied. And Doc, be careful. 2 days later, Vincent met Anthony at his club after hours. The information Anthony provided revealed Preston's true nature. The women he'd ruined, the rivals he'd destroyed, the officials he'd bribed. One more thing, Anthony said as Vincent was leaving. He's obsessed with appearances. His reputation means everything. And he's planning a big announcement next month, running for state senate. Vincent nodded, a plan beginning to take shape. Thank you, Anthony. Don't thank me yet, Anthony replied. You still look like the good guy in this fight. Trust me, Doc, when you cross a certain line, there's no going back. Vincent thought of Lily, of the whispered, we need to protect ourselves, of the calculated betrayal. Some lines, he said quietly, are meant to be crossed. Chapter 3, Alliance. The preliminary hearing for custody was scheduled for June 15th. In the weeks leading up to it, Vincent prepared meticulously, like planning for a high-risk surgery. Every contingency anticipated, every complication accounted for. He was permitted one supervised visit with Lily per week at a family center with bland walls and toys that seemed deliberately joyless. During their third visit, Lily seemed withdrawn, refusing to meet his eyes. Sweetheart, what's wrong? Vincent asked gently. Mom says you want to take me away from her, Lily whispered, clutching her rabbit. She says you're angry all the time, and that's why she's scared. Vincent's heart ached. Lily, look at me. He waited until she raised her eyes. Have you ever seen me angry like that? Have I ever done anything to make you afraid? Lily shook her head slowly. No, but Mom says sometimes daddies change. I will never change how much I love you, Vincent promised. And I'm not angry at you, not ever. The supervisor checked her watch, signaling the end of their time. As Vincent stood to leave, Lily suddenly ran to him, hugging his legs. I miss you, Daddy, she said, her voice muffled against him. Vincent bent down, memorizing the feel of her small arms around his neck. I miss you too, Princess. More than anything. Outside, Vincent composed himself before driving to his next meeting. In a private dining room at Morris's Steakhouse sat Walcott, Beverly, and two new faces, D.A. Richard Novak and City Councilwoman Teresa Valdez. Dr. Keller, Novak greeted him, extending his hand. Detective Walcott filled us in. I've been building a case against Doyle for years, but he's slippery. And connected, Valdez added. He's donated to every major campaign in the district. Most officials won't touch him. Vincent studied them carefully. Why are you helping me? Because Doyle tried to bribe me last year, Valdez said bluntly. Wanted special consideration for a development project. When I refused, suddenly there were rumors about my personal life, threats of primary challenges. And I prosecuted one of his associates 5 years ago, Novak added. The witness recanted at the last minute. Case dismissed. A month later, my bid for re-election was torpedoed by a sudden scandal. Walcott leaned forward. We've been gathering evidence, but it's not enough for charges. We need something concrete. Records, testimony, anything that directly links Doyle to the illegal activities. Vincent thought of the security footage of Melissa searching his office. They're looking for something specific in my files, he said. Something Doyle needs. Your grandfather's property deed, Beverly suggested. Maybe there's something about the land they need to know before pushing forward with development plans. Or leverage, Novak mused. Something they can use against you in court. Valdez, check her watch. I have a committee meeting. Dr. Keller, we'll help where we can, but be careful. Doyle doesn't play by any rules. After the others left, Vincent and Beverly remained, reviewing strategy for the upcoming hearing. They'll paint you as controlling, workaholic, possibly unstable, Beverly warned. We need character witnesses, proof of your relationship with Lily. Vincent nodded. I've spoken with colleagues, neighbors, Lily's teachers. They're all willing to testify. Good. And Vincent, Beverly hesitated. The judge will ask about reconciliation possibilities. Melissa's lawyer will push for counseling, a cooling-off period. No, Vincent said firmly. There's no going back. Not after this. As Vincent drove home to his empty house that night, he received a text from an unknown number. The past always catches up. Ask Preston about Westlake Heights, 1999. Vincent forwarded the message to Walcott, then sat in his driveway, staring at the darkened windows of what had once been his family home. In the rearview mirror, he caught his own reflection, the same face, but somehow fundamentally changed. The man who had left this house weeks ago no longer existed. In his place was someone colder. Someone who understood that mercy was sometimes just another word for weakness. Vincent had never been one to surrender in the operating room, even when a case seemed hopeless. He wouldn't start now. Chapter 4, Revelations. The morning of the preliminary hearing dawned clear and cool. Vincent dressed with surgical precision. Charcoal suit, subtle tie, his most conservative watch. Nothing flashy. Nothing that could be construed as intimidation or excess. The courthouse buzzed with quiet energy as Vincent and Beverly made their way through security. In a small conference room, they reviewed their strategy one final time. Remember, no matter what they say, keep your emotions in check, Beverly advised. Doyle wants you to lose control. Vincent nodded, his face a mask of professional calm that had served him well through countless high-pressure surgeries. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Raymond Wilkins entered, a stern man in his 60s with reading glasses perched at the end of his nose. Vincent immediately recognized him from the files Walcott had provided, a regular at Preston's charity golf tournaments. Melissa sat at the opposite table with her attorney, Kenneth Baldwin, a shark-like man known for high-conflict divorces. Preston wasn't present, too careful to show his hand so openly. Melissa had chosen her outfit with equal care, a modest blue dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a simple style. She looked vulnerable, proper, and vaguely frightened. Baldwin opened with a blistering character assassination, painting Vincent as an absent father, emotionally distant husband, an intimidating presence whose demanding career had always taken precedence over family. Your Honor, Baldwin concluded, Mrs. Keller seeks primary physical custody with supervised visitation for Dr. Keller, pending a full psychological evaluation and anger management counseling. When Beverly rose to speak, her approach was methodical rather than emotional, presenting Vincent's spotless record, documentation of his involvement in Lily's life, and affidavits from teachers and neighbors attesting to his gentle nature and commitment as a father. Furthermore, Beverly added, we have reason to believe Mrs. Keller's claims are part of a coordinated effort to separate Dr. Keller from his daughter and pressure him regarding valuable property he owns. Baldwin immediately objected. Outrageous speculation. Judge Wilkins peered over his glasses. Miss Scott, unless you have concrete evidence of such claims, I'll have to agree with Mr. Baldwin. Your Honor, Beverly replied smoothly. We've submitted a motion for discovery regarding Mrs. Keller's relationship with her employer, Preston Doyle, and communications pertaining to Dr. Keller's inherited property. A flicker of something, concern, perhaps, crossed Judge Wilkins' face. I'll review the motion in chambers. When Melissa took the stand, she played her role flawlessly. The frightened wife, the protective mother, voice trembling as she described Vincent's intimidating presence and unpredictable moods. He would come home from the hospital and barely speak, she testified. When I asked about his day, he'd snap at me. If dinner wasn't ready or if Lily was being too loud, he'd get this look. She shuddered delicately. Vincent maintained his composure, though internally he seethed at the calculated performance. This woman had shared his bed for 12 years, had once laid her head on his chest, and told him he was the gentlest man she'd ever known. During cross-examination, Beverly was surgical in her precision. Mrs. Keller, when did you first become romantically involved with Preston Doyle? Melissa's eyes widened. Objection, Baldwin shouted. Irrelevant and inflammatory. Your Honor, Beverly countered, Mrs. Keller's relationship with Mr. Doyle directly pertains to the timing and motivation of these allegations. Judge Wilkins seemed to wrestle with himself before responding. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Miss Scott. Melissa composed herself. Preston is simply my employer. These insinuations are exactly the kind of jealous, controlling behavior Vincent exhibits. Beverly smiled thinly, then presented the court with photographs from Travis's surveillance. Melissa and Preston embracing, kissing in his car, entering his lake house. And would you describe these as typical employer-employee interactions? Beverly asked. The color drained from Melissa's face as she recognized the images. Baldwin requested a short recess, which Judge Wilkins granted. In the hallway, Vincent stepped away to use the restroom. As he washed his hands, Preston Doyle himself entered. First time they'd been face to face. In person, Doyle was imposing, tall, fit for his age, silver hair immaculately styled, custom suit showcasing his wealthy status. "Dr. Keller," Preston said, his voice smooth as aged bourbon. "I thought it was time we met." Vincent dried his hands slowly. "Nothing to say to me, Doyle." Preston smiled, revealing perfect veneers. "Actually, I have a proposition. This unpleasantness, these allegations, they could disappear. Melissa would drop everything, agree to joint custody. In exchange for what? A simple property transfer. That lakefront land, it's wasted sitting empty. I'm prepared to offer 3 times its market value." Vincent maintained his calm exterior while rage boiled beneath. "And if I refuse?" Preston's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened. "Then we continue down this road. And I should warn you, it gets much uglier. Your hospital privileges, your medical license, your reputation, everything can be questioned, thrown into doubt." "You've done your research," Vincent observed. "Thoroughly. I know about Phoenix, Dr. Keller." Vincent felt a cold shock at the mention. Preston had found it, the one dark spot in his past, buried 15 years ago in another state. "Think about my offer," Preston continued. "For Lily's sake." As Preston turned to leave, Vincent spoke quietly. "I know about Westlake Heights." Preston froze momentarily before composing himself. "I don't know what you mean." 1999. Ring any bells? Without another word, Preston exited, but Vincent had seen what he needed, the flicker of genuine fear in the man's eyes. Back in the courtroom, Judge Wilkins announced his decision. Temporary shared custody with exchanges to be supervised by a court-appointed monitor, pending a full hearing in 60 days. It wasn't a complete victory, but it wasn't defeat either. Most importantly, Vincent would have regular, unsupervised time with Lily. As they left the courthouse, Beverly studied Vincent's expression. "Something happened during the recess. Doyle approached me," Vincent confirmed. "Offered to make it all go away if I sell him my grandfather's land." He hesitated, and he mentioned something from my past, something I never told Melissa. Beverly's expression grew serious. "Vincent, whatever it is, I need to know now." That evening, in Beverly's office, Vincent revealed what Preston had discovered. During his surgical residency in Phoenix, Vincent had falsified a report to protect a fellow resident who'd made a critical error during surgery. The patient had survived, but the cover-up, if exposed, could potentially threaten his medical license. "It was 15 years ago," Vincent finished. "I was young, stupid, trying to protect a friend." "And this friend?" Beverly asked. "Committed suicide 6 months later, unrelated reasons." Vincent ran a hand through his hair. "No one else knew." Beverly considered this. "Doyle must have gone to extraordinary lengths to uncover this. We need to find out how." She paused. "And what did you mean about Westlake Heights?" "It was in that anonymous text," Vincent explained. "I don't know details yet, but Walcott's looking into it." His phone rang. "Speak of the devil." "Vincent," Walcott's voice had an edge of excitement. "Westlake Heights was a development project from 20 years ago. Luxury condos built on contaminated land. 3 residents developed rare cancers before anyone discovered the truth." "Let me guess," Vincent said. "Doyle was involved." "Deeper than involved. I found a whistleblower, former environmental engineer who conducted the original soil tests. She claims Doyle personally ordered her to falsify reports, then threatened her family when she hesitated." "Can she testify?" "That's the thing," Walcott replied. "She disappeared 2 days before the deposition. Case fell apart, settlements were paid, records sealed. But," he paused for effect, "I found her." Vincent's pulse quickened. "Where?" "Living under a new name in Oregon. And she's finally ready to talk." After hanging up, Vincent stared out Beverly's office window at the city lights. The pieces were aligning, a diagnosis becoming clear. Like cancer, Doyle's corruption had spread through shadowed networks, protected by money and influence. And like cancer, it required aggressive, uncompromising treatment. On his drive home, Vincent called Anthony Russo. "I need another favor," Vincent said without preamble. "Information on Judge Raymond Wilkins. Specifically, his connection to Doyle. Already looking into it, Doc, Anthony replied. And I've got people watching your house, just in case. One more thing, Vincent added. I need to know who else Melissa has been talking to besides Doyle. Anyone she's met with, called, texted. Consider it done. Anthony paused. Doc, are you sure about how far you want to take this? There are lines that, once crossed. I'm sure, Vincent said, his voice like ice. They started this war. I'm going to finish it. Chapter 5, Counterattack. For the next 3 weeks, Vincent executed his strategy with the same precision he brought to complex surgeries. Each move calculated, each reaction anticipated. His first supervised visitation with Lily after the hearing was strained. She seemed confused by the court monitor's presence, and Melissa had clearly been poisoning the well. Mommy said you want to take me away from her, Lily said as they colored together at the visitation center. Vincent set down his crayon. Lily, do you remember our special rule? The one about always telling the truth to each other. She nodded slowly. I promise you, I don't want to take you away from Mommy. I just want us all to be happy and safe. Like before, Lily asked hopefully. Vincent hesitated. Not exactly like before, but we'll figure out something even better. He smiled gently. Now, tell me about school. Are you still reading those dinosaur books? By their third visit, Lily was relaxing again, laughing at his jokes, showing him her new drawings. The court monitor noted the positive interactions in her report. Meanwhile, Vincent's alliance was gathering ammunition. Walcott had arranged for the Westlake Heights whistleblower, Maria Sandoval, now living as Marie Sanders, to provide a sworn affidavit detailing Doyle's role in the environmental cover-up. Councilwoman Valdez discovered that 3 zoning board members who had approved Doyle's recent projects had received consulting fees through shell companies. DA Novak began quietly re-examining closed cases involving Doyle's business associates. Anthony provided the most damaging intelligence. Judge Wilkins had gambling debts at a casino in Atlantic City, debts that had mysteriously disappeared after he began presiding over cases involving Doyle's interests. Most crucially, Travis uncovered evidence that Melissa had been meeting with Lisa Donovan, Vincent's head nurse, regularly in the weeks before filing the restraining order. Lisa had access to all of Vincent's patient files, including those from his time in Phoenix. The betrayal cut deep. Lisa had worked alongside Vincent for 7 years, had held retractors during countless surgeries, had seen him save lives others had written off as hopeless. Vincent requested a private meeting with her in a coffee shop far from the hospital. Why, Lisa? He asked when she arrived, her eyes darting nervously. All those years working together, why would you help them destroy me? Lisa's hands trembled around her cup. They have my brother, she whispered. Danny got mixed up with some loan sharks last year. Doyle paid off his debt, $70,000. In exchange, I was supposed to find something in your past, something they could use. The Phoenix incident, Vincent stated flatly. Lisa nodded, tears forming. I'm so sorry, Vincent. They threatened Danny. What choice did I have? Vincent studied her, the dark circles under her eyes, the weight loss, the fear etched in every line of her face. I need everything, Lisa. Every conversation with Melissa, every instruction from Doyle or his people. Dates, times, what they asked for. They'll kill Danny, she protested weakly. No, they won't, Vincent assured her. Because we're going to get him first. That evening, Vincent met with Anthony at his club after hours. The plan they formulated was audacious, requiring precise timing and absolute secrecy. My guy in Atlantic City confirms that Danny Donovan works in one of the casinos there, Anthony reported. He's under constant watch by Doyle's men. We'll need a distraction to extract him. How soon can you move? Vincent asked. 3 days. I'll need cash, $50,000, non-sequential bills. Vincent nodded. I'll get it tomorrow. As Vincent was leaving, Anthony stopped him. Doc, once we do this, there's no going back. We're crossing into territory where your medical ethics won't apply. Vincent met his gaze steadily. They crossed that line first when they used my daughter as a weapon. The extraction went flawlessly. Anthony's men created a commotion in the casino while Danny was escorted out through employee exits, driven to a private airfield, and flown to a hunting lodge in rural Pennsylvania owned by one of Anthony's associates. With Danny secure, Lisa provided a detailed affidavit documenting how Melissa had approached her, what information she had been asked to find, and how it was to be used in court. The evidence was mounting, but Vincent knew they needed one final, irrefutable piece to bring Doyle down: proof of his direct involvement in the scheme. Beverly advised caution. "We have enough for the custody case now. Melissa's credibility is shot once we present Lisa's affidavit." "This isn't just about custody anymore," Vincent replied. "Doyle will find another way, another angle. He needs to be stopped completely." The opportunity came from an unexpected source. Diane Freeman called Vincent with urgent news. "Melissa's been staying at Preston's lake house," she reported. "This weekend, they're hosting a fundraiser for his Senate campaign announcement. Everyone who's anyone in local politics will be there." Vincent immediately called Walcott to share the information. "Perfect timing," the detective said. "The DA just received approval for surveillance warrants based on the evidence we've gathered. But we need someone inside that party." "I can't exactly crash it," Vincent pointed out. "No, but I know someone who can," Walcott replied. Teresa Valdez received an invitation. As a council member, her presence wouldn't raise eyebrows. The plan came together rapidly. Valdez would attend wearing a concealed recording device. Her mission: get Preston talking about Vincent, the custody case, and, ideally, the property he coveted. The night of the fundraiser arrived. Vincent waited with Walcott and Novak in an unmarked van parked a quarter-mile from Doyle's estate, monitoring the audio feed from Valdez's microphone. For 2 hours, they listened as she mingled, making small talk with judges, police officials, and business leaders. Finally, she managed to isolate Preston near his study. "I was surprised to see Judge Wilkins here." Her voice came through clearly. "Given the ongoing Keller custody case." Preston chuckled. "Raymond understands the bigger picture. Speaking of which, I understand you've been hesitant about the Riverside rezoning proposal." "I have concerns about the environmental impact," Valdez replied smoothly. "Perhaps we could discuss them privately," Preston suggested. "My study is more comfortable." Inside the study, Preston became more direct, outlining what amounted to a bribe disguised as a campaign contribution. Then, fatefully, Melissa entered. "Preston, Senator Mitchell is asking for you." She stopped, seeing Valdez. "Councilwoman, I didn't realize you were here." "Just discussing business," Preston said smoothly. "Melissa, would you mind bringing us some of that Macallan 25? When Melissa left, Valdez took a calculated risk. "I heard about your involvement in the Keller situation. Quite a convenient arrangement." Preston's tone chilled. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "No implication. Just admiration for the strategy. Custody claim, restraining order, pressure on a land deal, all while keeping your hands clean." There was a pause, and Vincent held his breath. "Nothing is ever completely clean in business or politics," Preston finally said. "The Keller property completes our lakefront development. Once it's secured, the project moves forward. Certain people benefit, others don't. Circle of life." "And his daughter? Lily, isn't it?" Another pause. "Collateral considerations. Melissa understands what needs to happen." In the van, Novak smiled grimly. "We've got him." Clear implication of using the custody case to pressure a property transfer. But the conversation wasn't over. Melissa returned with the drinks, and Valdez continued pushing. "It must be difficult, maintaining the narrative that Dr. Keller is dangerous when his reputation at the hospital is impeccable," she remarked. Melissa's voice hardened. "You don't know him like I do. I know that until 3 months ago, you never filed a police report, never sought medical attention, never confided in friends about abuse," Valdez countered. "Teresa," Preston interrupted, "you seem unusually interested in my personal affairs. One might wonder why." The tension was palpable even through the audio. Valdez smoothly changed the subject, but the damage was done. Preston was suspicious. 20 minutes later, Valdez excused herself and returned to the main party. Shortly after, she sent a text to Walcott. "Leaving now." Followed. Vincent's heart raced as they tracked Valdez's movement through the audio feed. She reached her car, started the engine. Then the microphone captured a male voice. "Councilwoman, a moment." One of Preston's security personnel had followed her. "Is there a problem?" Valdez asked calmly. Mr. Doyle requests you return the recording device you're wearing before leaving the premises. In the van, Walcott cursed. They made her. We need to move now. Vincent grabbed his arm. Wait. Listen. Valdez's laugh came through the speaker. Recording device? I think Mr. Doyle has been watching too many spy films. Ma'am, we're going to need you to step out of the vehicle. That would be unlawful detention, Valdez replied coolly. And as an elected official, I would consider it a very serious offense. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an early meeting tomorrow. They heard her car accelerate, followed by tense minutes of silence, broken only by the sounds of her driving. Finally, she spoke. If you can hear me, I'm clear. But Doyle knows. Whatever we're going to do with this recording, we need to do it fast. Back at the DA's office, they reviewed the audio evidence. It wasn't a smoking gun, but combined with the other evidence, it was enough for Novak to seek warrants for financial records and electronic communications. We move at dawn, Novak decided. Multiple simultaneous warrants, Doyle's offices, his home, the lake house, and electronic records. Maximum surprise. As Vincent drove home that night, a strange calm settled over him. The pieces were in motion. The trap was set. His phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. We need to talk. About Lily. Meet me at the house tomorrow, 10 a.m. Please come alone. Vincent stared at the message, suspicion immediate. After weeks of hiding behind lawyers and restraining orders, why reach out now? It could only be a trap. Unless Melissa had realized Doyle was exposed. Unless she was looking for a way out. He typed a careful reply. I'll be there. For Lily's sake. That night, Vincent barely slept, weighing possibilities, calculating risks. By morning, he'd made his decision. He called Beverly first. Melissa wants to meet. Today at the house. It's a trap, Beverly said immediately. Don't go. I know it probably is, Vincent replied. But if there's any chance of resolving this for Lily's sake, I have to try. Next, he called Walcott, informing him of the meeting and its potential risks. I'll have plainclothes officers nearby, Walcott promised. And Vincent, be careful. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. At precisely 10 a.m., Vincent pulled into the driveway of what had once been his family home. Through the windows, he could see Lily's toys still scattered in the living room. A life interrupted. Melissa opened the door before he could knock. She looked thinner, tense, her usually perfect makeup slightly smudged. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice formal. Please come in. Vincent stepped inside, hyper-aware of his surroundings. No sign of Lily, no other cars visible. Where's our daughter? He asked immediately. With my mother, Melissa replied. I thought it better we speak privately. They sat across from each other in the kitchen, the same table where they'd shared thousands of meals, planned vacations, discussed Lily's future. I know what you've been doing, Melissa began. The investigation, the witnesses, all of it. Preston told me last night. Vincent remained silent, waiting. It won't work, she continued, a slight tremor in her voice. Preston has too many connections. He'll bury whatever evidence you think you have. Is that why you asked me here? To threaten me? Melissa's composure cracked slightly. I'm trying to warn you. For your own good. For Lily's good. Take the deal, Vincent. Sell the property, agree to the custody arrangement, and this all goes away. And if I don't, then Preston will release what he found in Phoenix. Your career will be over. Lily will grow up knowing her father is a fraud. Vincent studied the woman across from him. Once his partner, the mother of his child, now a stranger. Tell me something, Melissa. Was any of it real? Us, our marriage. A flicker of something, regret, perhaps, crossed her face. We were young. You were ambitious, always at the hospital. I felt invisible. And Doyle made you feel seen, Vincent finished. Melissa nodded slightly. He has plans, vision. The development project is just the beginning. When he wins the Senate seat. He won't, Vincent interrupted. As we speak, the DA is executing search warrants on his properties and accounts. Melissa's eyes widened. You're bluffing. Vincent slid his phone across the table, showing her a text from Walcott. Warrants executed. Evidence secured. Proceeding with arrests. The color drained from Melissa's face. This is a mistake. Preston will fight this, and he'll win. He always wins. Not this time, Vincent said, rising from his chair. Give Lily a kiss for me. Tell her I'll see her soon. As he walked to the door, Melissa called after him, panic edging her voice. Vincent, wait. You don't understand. I can't lose everything. We can still fix this, find a compromise. Vincent turned back, meeting her eyes one final time. There is no compromise with betrayal. Melissa, you chose your side. Now live with it. As he drove away, Vincent called Beverly. It's done. She tried to threaten me with Phoenix, offer a deal. As expected, Beverly replied. But we have good news. The raid uncovered financial records linking Doyle directly to the fraudulent property schemes. And we found something else, evidence that he bribed expert witnesses in previous custody cases. What about Judge Wilkins? Recused himself an hour ago, citing potential conflict of interest. The case will be reassigned. Vincent allowed himself a small, cold smile. The first phase of his counterattack was complete. Now for the final strike. Chapter 6, Vulnerabilities. The headlines dominated local news for weeks. Real estate mogul Preston Doyle arrested on multiple felony charges. Judge Raymond Wilkins resigns amid corruption investigation. Senate candidate Doyle withdraws from race following indictment. Vincent watched the fallout with detached satisfaction. Doyle's carefully constructed empire was collapsing like a house of cards. Business partners distancing themselves, political allies suddenly developing amnesia about their relationships, banks freezing accounts pending investigation. Yet Vincent took no public victory lap. He continued his surgical schedule, met with his lawyers, and focused on rebuilding his relationship with Lily during their court-mandated visitations, which had been expanded under the new judge assigned to their case. 3 weeks after Doyle's arrest, Vincent received an unexpected call from Melissa's new attorney, Eleanor Walsh. Baldwin had withdrawn from the case when Doyle's funding evaporated. Dr. Keller, Walsh began, her tone businesslike. My client wishes to discuss the possibility of a settlement regarding custody and divorce terms. Vincent's grip tightened on the phone. Is that so? Mrs. Keller is prepared to withdraw all allegations of abuse and intimidation, agree to joint legal and physical custody, and proceed with an equitable division of marital assets. And what does she want in return? Vincent asked, though he already knew. Immunity from prosecution related to the Doyle investigation, and your agreement not to pursue civil claims against her. Vincent had anticipated this move. With Doyle facing multiple felony charges, Melissa was scrambling to save herself. I'll discuss it with my attorney, Vincent replied neutrally. Beverly was skeptical when they met later that day. It's a decent offer from a legal standpoint. Joint custody would give you equal time with Lily, and immunity would likely be granted anyway, since Melissa is cooperating with the DA's office against Doyle. Vincent shook his head. It's too easy. After everything she did, using our daughter as a weapon, the false allegations, the character assassination, she expects to walk away unscathed. What exactly do you want, Vincent? Beverly asked carefully. Justice, he replied simply. Real consequences for what she did. Beverly sighed. Revenge and justice aren't the same thing. You have a chance to end this cleanly. Focus on healing your relationship with Lily. Vincent was silent, turning the heavy crystal paperweight on Beverly's desk. Finally, he spoke. Schedule a meeting. I want to hear what she has to say in person. The meeting was set for the following week at Beverly's office. Melissa arrived with Walsh, her appearance markedly different from her court persona. No more vulnerable victim costume. Her hair was pulled back severely, her pantsuit conveying businesslike determination. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Walsh began. As I mentioned on the phone, Mrs. Keller is prepared to make significant concessions to resolve this matter expeditiously. Beverly nodded. We understand your client's position has evolved. Perhaps she could explain the reason for this change directly. All eyes turned to Melissa, who squared her shoulders. I recognize that mistakes were made, she said, her voice carefully modulated. In the interest of Lily's well-being, I believe we should move forward constructively. Mistakes, Vincent repeated, the word like ashes in his mouth. Is that what you call false allegations of abuse? Turning our daughter against me? Conspiring with Doyle to steal my property and destroy my career? Melissa flinched slightly. I was misled. Preston can be persuasive. I never intended. Save it, Vincent interrupted. I'm not interested in revisionist history. I want to know exactly what you're offering and what you expect in return. Walsh intervened smoothly. As outlined in our proposal, Mrs. Keller agrees to joint custody with alternating weeks and holidays. All allegations of abuse or intimidation will be formally withdrawn, with a statement acknowledging they were made under duress and external influence. And immunity, Vincent added. Melissa met his gaze for the first time. Yes, I provided valuable information to the district attorney about Preston's operations. In exchange, they've indicated willingness to grant immunity from prosecution, contingent on our agreement not to pursue civil claims, Beverly clarified. Walsh nodded. Correct. Vincent leaned back, studying Melissa, the woman he'd once loved, who had carried his child, who had systematically worked to destroy him. I have a counter-offer, he said finally. Joint legal custody, but primary physical custody remains with me. You get alternate weekends, 1 evening per week, and split holidays. You withdraw all allegations and issue a public apology. You relinquish any claim to my inheritance, including the lakefront property. Melissa's face tightened. That's completely one-sided. I'm Lily's mother, a mother who was willing to use her daughter as a pawn, Vincent replied coldly. A mother who taught her child to fear her father based on lies. I was protecting her. From what, Melissa? From a father who worked long hours to provide for his family, who never raised his voice, let alone his hand, who read her stories every night he was home, who built her science projects, who taught her to ride a bike. Tears welled in Melissa's eyes, genuine or calculated. Vincent couldn't tell anymore. You weren't there, she whispered. You didn't see how it affected her when you'd cancel plans, when you'd miss performances because of surgeries. I save lives, Vincent said simply. I never pretended my job wasn't demanding, but I always came home. I was always faithful. He let the implication hang in the air. Walsh cleared her throat. Perhaps we should take a break. Dr. Keller's proposal requires consideration. After Melissa and Walsh stepped out, Beverly turned to Vincent. That was harsh. It was honest, Vincent corrected. And my terms are non-negotiable. She won't agree, Beverly warned. Not to primary physical custody. Then we go to trial. With Lisa's testimony, the evidence from Doyle's files, and Melissa's documented affair, no judge will rule in her favor. Beverly studied him. Is this really what you want? To take Lily away from her mother? Vincent's expression hardened. Melissa made her choice when she decided our daughter was an acceptable casualty in her ambitions. I'm simply ensuring Lily is protected from future mistakes. When negotiations resumed, Walsh and Melissa countered with a proposal for 50-50 physical custody. Vincent refused. They offered increased child support in exchange for joint physical custody. Vincent refused again. This isn't about money, he stated flatly. This is about trust. Melissa destroyed that when she manipulated our daughter and fabricated abuse allegations. By the end of the meeting, they reached a tentative agreement. Vincent would have primary physical custody during the school year, with Melissa having extended time during summers and school breaks, plus alternate weekends during the school year. All allegations would be withdrawn with a public statement of retraction. The financial settlement was largely in Vincent's favor, with Melissa keeping only her personal property and a modest lump sum. I'll need to discuss this with my client privately, Walsh said. We'll respond by tomorrow. After they left, Beverly gave Vincent a measured look. You got almost everything you wanted. Was it worth it? Vincent watched through the window as Melissa got into her car, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Ask me when it's over, he replied. The following day, Walsh called to accept the terms with minor modifications. The agreement would be finalized within the week, pending court approval. That evening, Vincent sat in his empty house, a glass of bourbon in hand, surrounded by the quiet that had become his constant companion. His phone buzzed with a text from Anthony. Thought you should know. Doyle made bail. Released 2 hours ago. Vincent stared at the message, a cold unease settling in his stomach. Doyle wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. With his empire crumbling and his reputation in tatters, he had nothing left to lose. Another text followed. My guys are watching your place. Stay alert. Vincent dialed Anthony immediately. How did he make bail? I thought the amount was set in the millions. Property bond, Anthony replied. His lake house. Judge Harrison said it. Supposedly no connection to Doyle, but who knows these days? Where would he go? All his accounts are frozen. His associates are scattering. Anthony's voice was grim. If I were him, I'd be looking for whoever caused my downfall. Watch your back, document. After hanging up, Vincent checked the house security system Anthony's men had installed. Cameras, motion sensors, reinforced doors and windows. Then he retrieved the small safe from his closet, entering the combination and removing the Glock 19 inside. Purchased for home protection years ago, barely used except for occasional range practice. He checked the magazine, chambered a round, and set the gun on his nightstand before climbing into bed. Sleep eluded him. In the darkness, Vincent replayed the events of the past months, the cascade of betrayals and countermoves that had led to this moment. He had won, or was about to win, but victory felt hollow. His phone rang at 2:17 a.m. Unknown number. Hello. Vincent answered cautiously. Vincent. Melissa's voice was tight with panic. He's here. Preston. He showed up at my apartment, ranting about how we betrayed him. He's drunk, angry. Where's Lily? Vincent demanded, instantly alert. At my mother's, thank God. Vincent, I think he might. Her voice cut off with a muffled cry. A new voice came on the line. Dr. Keller, I believe we have unfinished business. Vincent's blood turned to ice at Doyle's slurred voice. What do you want, Preston? What do I want? Doyle laughed bitterly. I want my life back, my reputation, my future. But since you've taken those from me, I'll settle for making you understand loss. If you hurt her, you'll what? Doyle taunted. Call the police? They're already looking for me. Run to your lawyer? Bit late for that. No, doctor. Tonight we settle accounts directly, man to man. In the background, Vincent could hear Melissa pleading. Then the call ended abruptly. Vincent dialed 911 immediately, reporting the situation. Then he called Anthony. Preston's at Melissa's apartment. He's threatening her, possibly violent. I'll send my guys over now, Anthony promised. But they're at least 15 minutes out. Police? Already called. But Doyle's desperate, unstable. If he hurts her and the police show up, go. Anthony said simply. My men will meet you there. Vincent grabbed his gun and car keys, racing through the dark streets to Melissa's downtown apartment. As he drove, he called Walcott. Doyle's in my wife's apartment, threatening her. Police are en route, but I'm worried he'll do something drastic before they arrive. I'm calling him backup, Walcott promised. Vincent, don't engage him. He's cornered, dangerous. He's using Melissa to get to me, Vincent replied grimly. I can't let him hurt her because of our fight. This isn't your responsibility, Walcott insisted. She's my daughter's mother, Vincent said simply, and ended the call. Melissa's apartment building was dark when Vincent arrived, the street ominously quiet. He parked a block away and approached cautiously, gun concealed beneath his jacket. The lobby door was unlocked, not normal for this hour. Vincent took the stairs rather than the elevator, moving silently to the 4th floor. In the dimly lit hallway, Melissa's door stood slightly ajar. He paused, listening. No sounds from within. Vincent pushed the door open slowly, gun now drawn. The apartment was in disarray, furniture overturned, a lamp shattered on the floor. Blood droplets made a path toward the bedroom. Melissa, Vincent called softly. A muffled sound came from the bedroom. Vincent approached carefully, hyper-aware of each creaking floorboard. The bedroom door was closed. Vincent took a deep breath, steadying his hand on the gun, and pushed it open. Melissa sat on the edge of the bed, a cut on her forehead dripping blood, her wrists bound with zip ties. Behind her stood Preston Doyle, a revolver pressed to her temple. Right on time, Doctor, Doyle sneered. The heroic ex-husband, rushing to the rescue. Vincent kept his gun leveled at Doyle. It's over, Preston. Police are on their way. Of course they are, Doyle replied, oddly calm for a man on the edge. But we both know they won't arrive in time. Put the gun down, Vincent said evenly. You're already facing serious charges. Don't add murder to the list. Doyle laughed. A hollow, broken sound. Murder? No, doctor. This isn't murder. This is justice. Eye for an eye. You destroyed my life, so I'll destroy what matters to you. Killing Melissa won't hurt me, Vincent said coldly. We're already divorced in all but paperwork. Doyle's smile was chilling. Perhaps, but will devastate your daughter, won't it? Little Lily, growing up knowing her mother died because of her father's vendetta. Vincent's aim never wavered, but his mind raced, calculating angles, risks, possibilities. Let her go, Preston. This is between you and me. Oh, I don't think so, Doyle replied. You see, Melissa made her choice when she cooperated with the DA. Betrayed me after everything I did for her. He's insane, Melissa whispered, tears streaming down her face. Vincent, please. Quiet, Doyle snapped, pressing the gun harder against her head. You don't get to beg now. Vincent could hear sirens in the distance, still too far away. He needed to buy time. You won't escape, Preston. The building is surrounded. My sources knew you made bail. They've been watching you. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Doyle's face. You're bluffing. Am I? How do you think I got here so quickly? How did I know exactly where to find you? Vincent gestured slightly with his free hand. Look out the window. Black SUV at the corner. 3 men inside, all armed. Doyle's eyes darted toward the window, his grip on Melissa loosening fractionally. It was enough. Vincent lunged forward, tackling Doyle and Melissa onto the bed. The revolver discharged with a deafening crack, the bullet embedding in the ceiling. Vincent and Doyle grappled for control, rolling off the bed onto the floor. Despite his age, Doyle was surprisingly strong, fueled by desperation and rage. He managed to slam the revolver against Vincent's temple, momentarily stunning him. Blood trickled into Vincent's eye as Doyle scrambled to his feet, aiming the gun again. But before he could fire, Melissa, who had freed herself from the loosened zip ties, swung a heavy crystal lamp, striking Doyle in the back of the head. Doyle staggered, turning toward her with murderous fury. Vincent seized the moment, diving for his own dropped weapon and firing twice in rapid succession. The bullet struck Doyle in the chest. He looked down at the spreading crimson stain, an expression of disbelief on his face, before collapsing to the floor. The apartment door burst open as Anthony's men rushed in, followed moments later by police officers with weapons drawn. "Drop the weapon," an officer shouted. Vincent carefully placed his gun on the floor, raising his hands. "I'm Dr. Vincent Keller. That man attacked my wife. It was self-defense." The next hours passed in a blur of police statements, paramedics treating Vincent's head wound and Melissa's cuts, detectives taking photographs and collecting evidence. Preston Doyle was pronounced dead at the scene. By dawn, both Vincent and Melissa had been cleared of wrongdoing based on the overwhelming evidence of self-defense, including Melissa's 911 call that had recorded part of the confrontation. As they sat in the hospital waiting room, where doctors had insisted on keeping them for observation, Melissa finally spoke. "You could have let him kill me," she said quietly. "After everything I did to you." Vincent looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. The woman he had once loved, mother of his child, author of his greatest pain. In her eyes, he saw genuine remorse mixed with lingering fear. "I couldn't do that to Lily," he answered honestly. "Whatever happened between us, she needs her mother." Melissa nodded slowly, tears welling again. "I'm so sorry, Vincent. For all of it. I got caught up in Preston's world, his promises. I never thought it would go this far." Vincent felt the weight of months of anger and betrayal, and beneath it, a surprising flicker of pity. Melissa had been manipulated by a master, just as so many others had been before her. "We need to figure out how to move forward," he said finally. "For Lily's sake." In that sterile hospital room, as dawn broke over the city, they began the difficult conversation about rebuilding what could be salvaged from the wreckage of their family. Chapter 7. Aftermath. In the weeks following Preston Doyle's death, the media frenzy was relentless. Headlines blared sensationalized versions of the confrontation, painting Vincent alternately as a heroic doctor defending his estranged wife or a calculated vigilante who had orchestrated Doyle's downfall. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in between. The investigation into Doyle's business empire continued, revealing an extensive network of corruption that had tentacles in local government, law enforcement, and the judiciary. Judge Wilkins wasn't the only official on Doyle's payroll. 3 city council members and a deputy police commissioner were also implicated. For Vincent, the legal aftermath was mercifully brief. The district attorney ruled the shooting a clear case of self-defense, with Melissa's testimony and the 911 recording providing irrefutable evidence of Doyle's intentions. Professionally, Vincent took a month's leave from the hospital, partly to recover from his injuries and partly to focus on rebuilding his relationship with Lily. The chief of surgery, Dr. Eleanor Hammond, had been supportive throughout the ordeal, keeping his position secure despite the controversy. The board unanimously agreed, she told Vincent during a private meeting before his return. Your work here has saved countless lives. We stand behind you. The custody arrangement was formalized through an accelerated court process. Vincent would have primary physical custody during the school year, with Melissa having extended time during summers and alternate weekends. Most importantly, the judge ordered extensive family therapy to help Lily process the dramatic changes in her young life. Their first session with Dr. Patricia Winters, a child psychologist specializing in family trauma, was difficult. Lily was confused, withdrawn, clinging to the stuffed rabbit that had become her emotional support. Lily, Dr. Winters said gently, "Can you tell me how you're feeling about spending time at 2 different homes?" Lily looked between her parents, uncertainty in her eyes. "I don't know. Daddy's house is quiet. Mommy cries sometimes." Vincent felt a pang at her words. Despite everything, he hated the thought of Lily witnessing Melissa's pain. It's okay to have different feelings about different places, Dr. Winters assured her. And it's okay if those feelings change. By their 3rd session, Lily was more forthcoming, expressing her fears through play therapy, her stuffed animals enacting scenarios of separation and reunion. "The bunny is scared the bear, and the fox won't talk to each other anymore," she explained as she manipulated the toys. Dr. Winters nodded. "What does the bunny need to feel safe?" Lily considered this seriously. For the bear and the fox to promise they'll both always love her, even if they don't love each other. Vincent and Melissa exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. Whatever had fractured between them, their love for Lily remained intact. After the session, they stood awkwardly in the parking lot, neither quite ready to part. "She's handling it better than I expected," Melissa ventured. Vincent nodded. "Kids are resilient, but she needs consistency from both of us." "I've been looking at apartments closer to your place," Melissa said, to make the transitions easier for her. It was an olive branch of sorts, a practical gesture acknowledging the new reality of their family configuration. "That would be good," Vincent agreed. "There's a complex about 10 minutes away that just put up rental signs." The conversation was stilted, formal, but without the toxic undercurrent that had characterized their interactions for months. Progress of a sort. 2 days later, Vincent returned to work, stepping into the familiar rhythms of the hospital with a strange sense of dislocation. Colleagues greeted him warmly but carefully, unsure how to reference the dramatic events that had played out in the press. Lisa Donovan was notably absent, transferred to another department by her own request. Vincent couldn't blame her. The betrayal had been professional and personal, but he understood the impossible position Doyle had put her in. Vincent's first surgery post-leave was a tricky aortic valve replacement on a high-risk patient. He moved through the procedure, his hands steady despite the whispers he knew were circulating among the staff. "Impeccable work, as always," Dr. Hammond commented during post-op rounds. "Though I'd expect nothing less from the man who took down Preston Doyle." Vincent grimaced slightly. "That's not exactly how I'd characterize it." "No." Hammond raised an eyebrow. "From what I hear, you systematically dismantled his operation, exposed his corruption, and then, when he came after you directly, you defended yourself. Seems pretty clear-cut." "Nothing about this has been clear-cut," Vincent replied. "And I take no satisfaction in a man's death, regardless of what he did." Hammond studied him thoughtfully. "That's why you're one of the best surgeons I know, Vincent. Even after everything, you still see the humanity in people. As he drove home that evening, Vincent reflected on Hammond's words. Had he seen the humanity in Doyle? Or in Melissa, when she betrayed him? Or had he simply calculated the most efficient way to neutralize threats to himself and his daughter? The line between justice and vengeance had blurred during those dark months. He wasn't sure he could clearly distinguish his motivations anymore. At home, Vincent prepared for Lily's weekend visit, stocking her favorite foods, setting up the new telescope they'd been planning to use before everything imploded. The house felt different somehow. No longer the mausoleum of a failed marriage, but something new, a space being redefined. The doorbell rang precisely at 6 p.m. Melissa was nothing if not punctual. Vincent opened the door to find Lily bouncing excitedly on the porch, a backpack shaped like a dinosaur slung over her shoulder. "Daddy," she exclaimed, launching herself into his arms. "Mommy said we can look at stars with the telescope. Can we see Jupiter?" Ms. Patterson said Jupiter has 79 moons. Vincent caught Melissa's eye over Lily's head. "Did she now? Well, we'll certainly try to spot a few of those moons, won't we?" Melissa smiled faintly. She's been counting down the days. Apparently, astronomy trumps her princess phase. "All set for Sunday evening pickup," Vincent confirmed. Melissa nodded. 7 p.m. "I've enrolled in that parenting class Dr. Winters recommended. It starts Monday." Another small gesture of reconciliation, not with him, but with the idea of co-parenting constructively. "That's great," Vincent said sincerely. "Lily, say goodbye to Mom for now. We've got a universe to explore." The weekend passed in a blur of stargazing, pancake making, and binge-watching nature documentaries. Moments of normal fatherhood that Vincent had feared might be lost forever. Lily's nightmares, which had plagued her during the worst of the custody battle, seemed to have subsided. She slept soundly in her bedroom, surrounded by the solar system mobile they'd assembled together. Sunday evening arrived too quickly. As Vincent helped Lily pack her dinosaur backpack, his phone rang. Anthony Russo. "Doc." Anthony's voice was grave. "We need to talk. It's about Doyle's associates." Vincent stepped into the hallway, lowering his voice. "What about them?" "They're regrouping. Doyle had a partner nobody knew about, someone who stayed completely in the shadows. Guy named Calvin Mercer. Real estate attorney, very connected. Word is, he's picking up where Doyle left off." Vincent felt a chill. "Is he a threat?" "Not immediately," Anthony assured him. "He's smart enough to keep his distance from you and your family. But the operations Doyle was running, the bribes, the property schemes, the intimidation tactics, they're continuing under new management." "I see," Vincent said carefully, aware of Lily humming to herself in the bedroom. "And what does this have to do with me?" "Nothing directly. Just thought you should know." "And?" Anthony hesitated. "The lakefront property you inherited. Mercer's still interested. Made inquiries through back channels." "It's not for sale," Vincent stated flatly. "I figured as much. Just watch your back. Document. These people play the long game." After hanging up, Vincent stood motionless in the hallway, processing this new information. The fight he thought was over might just be entering a new phase. "Daddy? Is everything okay?" Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching her rabbit. Vincent forced a smile. "Everything's fine, princess. Just a call from the hospital." He knelt to her level. "All packed and ready to go to Mom's?" Lily nodded, then suddenly threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." Vincent held her tight, the simple declaration washing away his darker thoughts. "I love you too, Lilybug. More than anything in the world." That night, after dropping Lily off, Vincent drove to Beverly's home. An unusual hour for a legal consultation, but she had agreed immediately when he called. "Anthony Russo contacted me," Vincent explained as they sat in her comfortably cluttered study. Apparently, Doyle had a silent partner who's continuing his operations. Beverly frowned. "Calvin Mercer?" "The name's come up in the DA's investigation, but they haven't found a solid connection yet." "I'm concerned about Lily," Vincent admitted. "If these people are still operating, still interested in my property." "I understand," Beverly said. "But legally, you're in a strong position now. The restraining order is gone, custody is established, and your reputation has been restored. even enhanced by how you protected Melissa despite everything. It's not enough, Vincent replied, an edge entering his voice. As long as Mercer's organization exists, they're a potential threat. I need to neutralize it completely. Beverly studied him carefully. Vincent, you've won. You have your daughter, your career, your reputation. Doyle is gone. Maybe it's time to let the authorities handle the rest. Vincent stood, pacing the small office. The authorities were compromised before. Who's to say they aren't still? Mercer made inquiries about my property. That means he has the same development plans Doyle did. And you still won't sell? Beverly asked, though she clearly knew the answer. Never, Vincent said firmly. That land stays in my family. It's Lily's inheritance now. Beverly sighed. Then we continue building the case. Legitimately, through proper channels. No more personal vendettas, no more crossing lines. Promise me that much. Vincent met her gaze steadily. I promise to do whatever it takes to protect my daughter's future. It wasn't the reassurance Beverly wanted, but it was the only one he could honestly give. In the months that followed, Vincent maintained a careful balance between his recommitted surgical career, his co-parenting relationship with Melissa, and his quiet investigation into Calvin Mercer's operations. The latter he conducted with Anthony's help, accumulating information rather than taking direct action. Melissa kept her word about moving closer, renting an apartment just 15 minutes from Vincent's house. The proximity made transitions easier for Lily, who began to adapt to her new normal with the resilience of childhood. Their family therapy sessions continued, evolving into productive discussions about boundaries, communication, and shared parenting values. Vincent and Melissa weren't friends. Perhaps they never would be, but they were developing a functional partnership centered on Lily's well-being. One evening in late October, 6 months after Doyle's death, Vincent arrived home to find Melissa waiting in her car outside his house. We need to talk, she said as he approached, her expression troubled. It's important. Inside, Melissa declined his offer of coffee, too anxious to sit. I was contacted by someone claiming to represent Calvin Mercer, she said without preamble. They offered me a job, zoning consultant for a new development company. Vincent tensed. What did you tell them? That I'd think about it. Melissa met his gaze directly. I want to talk to you first. It's a trap, Vincent said immediately. They're trying to use you again. I know that, Melissa replied, a flash of the old steel in her voice. I'm not an idiot, Vincent, but I thought maybe we could use this, get information from the inside. Vincent studied her with new eyes. The woman before him wasn't the same one who had fallen under Doyle's influence. She was sharper now, more self-aware, tempered by experience. It will be dangerous, he said finally. These people don't play games. I'm aware of the risks, Melissa replied. But I owe you this. After everything I did, all the pain I caused you and Lily, let me help make it right. Vincent hesitated, torn between pragmatism and protective instinct. Why? Why put yourself at risk? Melissa looked away, her voice quieter. Because I need to prove to myself that I'm not the person Preston made me into. And because she paused, visibly composing herself. Because Lily deserves parents she can be proud of. Both of us. The sincerity in her words was unmistakable. Vincent felt something shift between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps understanding. If you do this, he said slowly, we do it together. Every step coordinated, nothing kept from each other. And at the first sign of danger, you walk away. Melissa nodded, relief evident in her expression. I promise. Complete transparency. And so began a new phase in their complicated relationship. Adversaries turned reluctant allies against a common enemy. Melissa accepted the position with Mercer's front company, Atlas Development Group, while feeding information to Vincent, who shared it with D.A. Novak through Walcott. For 3 months, the arrangement worked seamlessly. Melissa gained Mercer's trust gradually, while carefully documenting irregular payments, zoning irregularities, and questionable meetings with city officials. Vincent kept his distance publicly, maintaining the illusion of their strained relationship while meeting secretly to exchange information. Their cooperation extended to parenting as well, with more flexible custody arrangements that prioritized Lily's increasing school and social commitments. The winter holidays approached, Lily's first Christmas with divorced parents. They agreed to spend Christmas Eve together at Vincent's house, allowing Lily to wake up Christmas morning without having to choose between them. Vincent was putting the finishing touches on the Christmas tree when his phone rang. Melissa. Emergency meeting called at Atlas, she said without greeting. Mercer will be there. This could be it, the connection we've been looking for. Be careful, Vincent cautioned. Don't take any unnecessary risks. I know the drill, Melissa replied. I'll call you after. But the call never came. By midnight, with no word from Melissa, Vincent's concern had escalated to alarm. He called her repeatedly, straight to voicemail. He contacted Anthony, who dispatched men to check her apartment and the Atlas offices. Both empty. Vincent called Walcott next. Melissa's missing. She was headed to a meeting with Mercer hours ago. Stay put, Walcott ordered. I'll get a team together, check traffic cameras, the works. Vincent paced his living room, checked on sleeping Lily, and tried Melissa's phone again. Nothing. At 2:18 a.m., his phone finally rang. Unknown number. Melissa, he answered urgently. Dr. Keller. The voice was male, cultured, with a faint southern accent. Calvin Mercer. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance. Vincent's blood ran cold. Where is she? Safe, for now, Mercer replied calmly. Though I must say, I'm disappointed. Melissa seemed so committed to our vision for Atlas. Imagine my surprise when I discovered her extracurricular activities. If you hurt her, please, Mercer interrupted, sounding almost offended. I'm a businessman, not a monster like Preston. Violence is messy, inefficient. I prefer negotiation. What do you want? Vincent demanded. The same thing Preston wanted. Your grandfather's property. It's the keystone of a development project worth hundreds of millions. I'm prepared to offer 5 times market value. Plus, he paused meaningfully. Ms. Keller's safe return to her daughter. I want proof she's alive, Vincent insisted. Of course. There was rustling. Then Melissa's voice came through, shaky but clear. Vincent, don't. Her voice cut off, and Mercer returned. Satisfied? Now about my offer. The documents will be delivered to your home in 1 hour. Sign them, and this unpleasantness ends. Refuse and what? Vincent challenged. You'll kill the mother of my child? How does that help your business interests? Mercer chuckled. Kill her? No, but there are other ways to disappear. Plenty of rehab facilities for wealthy women with substance abuse problems. Very private, very secure. Melissa could spend years recovering from her addiction while lost in the system. The threat was clear and frightening in its plausibility. I need time, Vincent stalled. The property isn't a trust for my daughter. There are legal complications. You have until noon tomorrow, Mercer stated flatly. The documents will include all necessary provisions to transfer clean title. Don't involve the police. Don't try to locate us. I'll know. The call ended abruptly. Vincent immediately phoned Walcott, putting him on speaker while he texted Anthony. Mercer just called, Vincent reported. He has Melissa. Want me to sign over my property by noon tomorrow. Did he give any clue to his location? Walcott asked. No, but he's sending someone with documents within the hour. Walcott's voice sharpened. That's our opportunity. I'll have plainclothes officers nearby. When his courier arrives, we'll follow them back to Mercer. Too risky, Vincent countered. He said he'd know if police were involved. Then what's your plan? Walcott demanded. Vincent was silent for a moment. I signed the papers. What? After everything. I signed the papers, Vincent repeated, but not the ones he sends. I need a viable plan by the time his courier arrives. Call Novak, get his input. After hanging up, Vincent called Beverly despite the hour, briefly explaining the situation. I need a fake property transfer, he concluded. Something that looks legitimate but won't hold up to serious scrutiny. That's fraud, Vincent, Beverly cautioned. It's buying time, Vincent corrected. I just need enough to locate Melissa before Mercer realizes the deception. Beverly sighed heavily. I'll be there in 30 minutes with what you need. Vincent next called Mrs. Peterson, his elderly neighbor, asking if Lily could stay with her for a few hours a family emergency had come up. The kind woman agreed without hesitation. Finally, he contacted Anthony again. I need everything you have on Mercer's properties, safe houses, anywhere he might take a hostage. Already on it, Doc, Anthony replied. And I've got some ideas about tracking that courier when they show up. By the time headlights swept across Vincent's front window at 3:22 a.m., a plan was in motion. Beverly had prepared substitute documents that appeared legitimate but contained subtle legal flaws. Anthony's men were positioned discreetly around the neighborhood. Walcott and Novak waited on standby, ready to move at Vincent's signal. The courier, a nervous young man in an ill-fitting suit, handed over a thick envelope containing the transfer documents. Vincent made a show of reviewing them carefully. "There's a problem," he said finally. "This doesn't address the existing conservation easement on the property. It would make the transfer invalid." The courier shifted uncomfortably. "I'm just supposed to bring back signed papers." "Then I'll need to modify these," Vincent said smoothly, taking Beverly's prepared document from his desk. "The substance is the same, but the legal framework is correct." The young man clearly didn't understand the difference, but was too intimidated to object. He watched anxiously as Vincent signed the substituted papers with a flourish. "There, tell Mr. Mercer the property is his." Vincent handed over the envelope. "Now, where's Melissa?" "I don't know anything about that," the courier stammered. "I just deliver papers." As the courier drove away, one of Anthony's men followed discreetly on a motorcycle, while another tracked the GPS device Vincent had slipped into the envelope. The night stretched into dawn as Vincent coordinated with his impromptu team, tracking the courier to a lakeside mansion 30 miles outside the city, one of Mercer's unlisted properties. "Satellite imagery shows minimal security," Walcott reported. "2 guards at the entrance, probably more inside. We'll need a warrant." "There's no time," Vincent argued. "Once Mercer reviews those documents, he'll know they're fakes." "And what do you suggest?" Novak demanded. "A civilian raid on a private residence? That's insanity." Vincent's jaw tightened. "I'm going in, with or without official support." A tense silence followed. "Give me an hour," Novak finally said. "I know a judge who owes me a favor." "But Vincent, no heroics. When a warrant comes through, you stay behind police lines." Vincent agreed, knowing he would do no such thing if Melissa's life was in danger. The warrant arrived with remarkable speed. By 7:30 a.m., law enforcement had surrounded Mercer's lakeside compound, with Vincent, Anthony, and Walcott watching from a command vehicle. "Heat signatures show 5 individuals inside," the SWAT commander reported. 2 on the main floor, 3 upstairs. "Melissa will be guarded," Vincent predicted. "Probably upstairs, away from Mercer himself." The raid unfolded, SWAT teams breaching multiple entry points simultaneously. Gunfire erupted briefly, followed by the all-clear signal 15 minutes later. Vincent rushed inside despite Walcott's protests, finding Melissa in an upstairs bedroom, shaken but largely unharmed save for bruised wrists from restraints. "Vincent," she breathed, relief washing over her face. "They know the papers are fake." Mercer was on the phone ordering. She stopped, her eyes widening at something behind him. Vincent turned to find Calvin Mercer himself, blood seeping from shoulder wound, a small revolver aimed unsteadily at Vincent's chest. "You!" Mercer snarled, his cultured veneer stripped away by pain and rage. "You think you're so clever. Just like Preston said." Vincent raised his hands slowly. "It's over, Mercer. The police have the building surrounded." "Not quite over," Mercer replied, his finger tightening on the trigger. "I may be going down, but I'll have the satisfaction of—" A single shot rang out. Mercer's eyes widened in surprise as he crumpled to the floor, revealing Walcott in the doorway, his service weapon still raised. "I thought I told you to stay outside," the detective said mildly, holstering his gun. The aftermath was a blur of paramedics, police statements, and media vans gathering outside the compound. Mercer survived his wounds, but faced a litany of charges that would ensure he spent the rest of his life in prison. By Christmas Eve, less than 48 hours after the raid, Vincent and Melissa sat together in his living room, watching Lily hang the last ornaments on the tree. The ordeal had forged something new between them. Not the love they had once shared, but a hard-won respect and the beginnings of genuine trust. I keep thinking about what Mercer said at the end. Melissa said, quietly, about Preston talking about you. Vincent nodded. They underestimated both of us. Melissa looked at him thoughtfully. You know, for all his manipulation, Preston was right about one thing. You are ruthless when protecting what you love. Is that a criticism or a compliment? Vincent asked. Neither. Just an observation. Melissa's gaze shifted to Lily, happily arranging presents under the tree. I'm glad she has you as a father. Vincent considered this. And I'm glad she has you as a mother. The real you, not the person Doyle tried to shape. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. Some betrayals cut too deep for that. But it was acknowledgement, recognition of the complicated truth that people could be both deeply flawed and genuinely changed. As they watched their daughter together, Vincent felt the cold knot of vengeance that had driven him for so long finally begin to loosen. In its place was something quieter but more durable, a determination to build something good from the wreckage of what had been destroyed. The war was over. Now came a harder part. Peace. Chapter 8. Reconstruction. Spring arrived with a gentleness that seemed at odds with the turmoil of the previous year. The media frenzy around the Doyle conspiracy, as newspapers had dubbed it, gradually subsided as other scandals claimed public attention. Calvin Mercer's trial was scheduled for September, with both Vincent and Melissa slated as key witnesses. On a warm Saturday in April, Vincent stood on the shore of the lake at his grandfather's property, watching Lily skip stones across the glassy surface. The land remained undeveloped. 5 acres of pristine forest and lakefront that had nearly cost them everything. "Daddy, look, 5 skips," Lily called out, her face alight with accomplishment. "That's amazing, Princess." Vincent applauded. "Your arm's getting stronger." Melissa emerged from the small cabin, carrying a tray with lemonade and sandwiches. The 3 of them had begun spending occasional weekends here, allowing Lily to experience the natural world her great-grandfather had cherished. Their co-parenting relationship had evolved into something neither could have imagined during the darkest days of their separation. Not reconciliation, but a genuine partnership built on shared values and mutual respect. As they picnicked on the dock, Lily peppered them with questions about fish species and lake ecology, her natural curiosity blossoming in this environment. "Can we build a bigger cabin?" she asked suddenly, "with a laboratory for experiments and a giant telescope?" Vincent and Melissa exchanged amused glances. "Maybe someday," Vincent hedged. "For now, the small cabin works pretty well for weekends, don't you think?" Lily considered this seriously. "I guess. But when I grow up, I'm going to be a scientist who studies lakes and stars, so I'll need both." Hard to argue with that logic. Melissa smiled, ruffling Lily's hair. Later, as Lily napped in the cabin, Vincent and Melissa sat on the dock, feet dangling in the cool water. "I've been offered a job," Melissa said after a comfortable silence. "Environmental compliance specialist with the State Conservation Department." Vincent raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a change from real estate." "I learned a lot during the Atlas investigation," she admitted. "About property development, environmental regulations, all of it. Apparently, my unique perspective on how developers try to circumvent laws makes me valuable." "Are you going to take it?" Melissa nodded. "I start next month. The hours are regular, the pay is decent, and," she hesitated, "it feels like the right thing to do. Using what I learned from my mistakes to prevent others from making them." Vincent studied her profile against the setting sun. The woman beside him had changed profoundly from the status-seeking, easily influenced person he had married. Hardship had revealed a core of strength he hadn't known was there. "I think you'll be excellent at it," he said sincerely. "Thank you." Melissa glanced at him. "What about you? Any changes on the horizon?" Vincent had been contemplating this question himself lately. His surgical career continued to thrive. He had recently been appointed head of the cardiothoracic department following Dr. Hammond's retirement. But the experiences of the past year had shifted something fundamental in his worldview. "I'm thinking of starting a foundation," he said, the idea crystallizing as he spoke it aloud. Using part of the land here for a research center focused on environmental medicine, studying how ecosystems impact human health. That sounds perfect for you, Melissa observed, combining your medical expertise with your connection to this place. Vincent nodded. It's still taking shape. But after everything with Doyle and Mercer, seeing how development without conscience destroys communities, I want to be part of the solution. They lapsed into companionable silence, watching the sun sink toward the tree line. Their shared history, both the years of marriage and the more recent trauma, created a complex bond that defied simple categorization. We should head back soon, Melissa said eventually. Lily has that birthday party tomorrow. The drive back to the city was quiet, Lily dozing in her booster seat, exhausted from a day of exploration. At Vincent's house, where Melissa would pick up Lily the following afternoon, they moved through the familiar handoff routine with practiced ease. Dr. Winters thinks Lily might be ready to reduce therapy to twice a month, Melissa mentioned as they transferred Lily's weekend bag. She says her adjustment has been remarkable. Vincent nodded. I've noticed. The nightmares have stopped completely, and she's talking more openly about her feelings. She gets that from you, Melissa said with a small smile. Always the communicator in the family. It was a gentle joke, acknowledging one of the fault lines in their former marriage. Vincent's tendency to process emotions internally, a trait that had sometimes left Melissa feeling shut out. I've been working on that, Vincent admitted. Therapy's been good for me, too. After Melissa left, Vincent carried sleeping Lily to her bedroom, carefully changing her into pajamas without waking her. As he tucked the covers around her, he marveled at her resilience. How children could absorb shocking change and still grow, still find joy. The following week brought Calvin Mercer back into their lives, albeit indirectly. DA Novak requested a meeting with both Vincent and Melissa to discuss new developments in the case. Mercer's offering a deal, Novak explained in his office, surrounded by case files. Full cooperation, naming names, providing documentation of every corrupt official and business partner in his network. In exchange for what? Vincent asked skeptically. Reduced charges, possibility of parole after 15 years instead of life without parole. Melissa frowned. After everything he did? The kidnapping, the threats. Novak spread his hands. His information would help us dismantle what remains of Doyle's network completely. It's a devil's bargain, but potentially worth it. Do you need our approval? Vincent asked. Not officially, but given your roles as key witnesses and victims, I wanted your input before proceeding. Vincent and Melissa exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. If his information is verified, if it truly helps end this corruption permanently, then I can accept the deal, Vincent said finally. Melissa nodded agreement. We just want this chapter closed. For Lily's sake, for our own. Novak seemed relieved. I was hoping you'd see it that way. There's one more thing. Mercer specifically requested a meeting with you, Vincent. Just once, before finalizing the deal. Vincent tensed. Why? He wouldn't say. It's not a condition of the agreement, just a request. You're free to refuse. Vincent considered the proposal. Part of him wanted nothing more to do with Mercer or anything connected to Doyle. But another part, the surgeon accustomed to looking unflinchingly at difficult truths, was curious. I'll meet him, Vincent decided, but only if it's recorded and only in a secure facility. The meeting was arranged for the following week at the Federal Detention Center, where Mercer was being held pending trial. Vincent arrived early, subjected himself to security screening, and was escorted to a small conference room with reinforced windows and cameras in every corner. Calvin Mercer, when he entered in handcuffs and prison orange, looked diminished from the powerful figure who had orchestrated Melissa's kidnapping. His silver hair had lost its luster, his posture slightly stooped. Only his eyes retained their calculating sharpness. Dr. Keller, he greeted as a guard removed his handcuffs. Thank you for coming. Vincent nodded curtly. You wanted to see me? I'm here. Mercer settled into the chair across the table. I wanted to meet the man who managed what no one else could, bringing down Preston Doyle's empire. Impressive work, especially for an outsider. I didn't do it alone, Vincent replied, refusing to engage with the flattery. No, you assembled quite the coalition. The detective, the DA, your ex-wife, even Anthony Russo. That was an inspired choice. Mercer's mouth quirked in what might have been admiration. Preston underestimated you from the beginning. I warned him, but he was too arrogant to listen. Vincent leaned forward slightly. Is that why you wanted this meeting? To compliment my strategy? Mercer chuckled softly. Partly, but also to understand. You had opportunities to walk away, to cut your losses. The property, your marriage, even your daughter. You could have compromised, reached an arrangement. Instead, you chose total war. They used my daughter as a weapon, Vincent said, his voice low and controlled. Crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Yes, that was Preston's mistake, Mercer agreed. He thought your daughter was your vulnerability. He didn't realize she was your strength. Vincent studied the man across from him, a predator recognizing another predator. Why are you really talking to me, Mercer? The older man's expression turned contemplative. Professional curiosity, perhaps. In my 40 years in business, I've encountered every type of man. The corruptible, the principled, the pragmatic, the idealistic. But you're something different. A man of both unflinching principles and ruthless execution. I'm a surgeon, Vincent said simply. We make life and death decisions daily, then carry them out with absolute precision. Indeed, Mercer nodded. There's something else you should know. Something not in any of the case files or testimonies. Vincent waited, guard up. Preston had a contingency plan. Mercer continued. If anything happened to him, certain information was to be released about you, your time in Phoenix, other indiscretions he'd uncovered. Vincent's pulse quickened. Why wasn't it activated after his death? Because I countermanded it, Mercer said, surprising Vincent. Not out of any loyalty to Preston. We were partners, not friends. But because I recognized something in you worth preserving. What could that possibly be? Vincent asked skeptically. Mercer leaned back, his gaze distant. I'm an old man, Dr. Keller. I've spent my life building wealth and power through means I won't apologize for. But I've come to appreciate certain qualities, determination, intelligence, unwavering purpose. You eliminated Preston not out of greed or ambition, but to protect what was yours. I respect that clarity. Vincent wasn't sure how to respond to this unexpected admission. The information is contained in a safe deposit box, Mercer continued. Bank of Continental Trust, Downtown Branch. Box 4237. The key and access documentation will be delivered to your office tomorrow. Why would you do this? Vincent asked, genuinely perplexed. Mercer smiled thinly. Consider it professional courtesy. One predator acknowledging another. He paused, and perhaps a recognition that the world still needs men like you. Men willing to go to any length to protect what matters. The guard signaled that their time was ending. Mercer stood, extending his hand across the table. After a moment's hesitation, Vincent shook it briefly. One piece of advice, Dr. Keller, Mercer said as the guard reapplied his handcuffs. That relentlessness that served you so well against Preston, don't let it consume the peace you've fought to build. Vincent left the detention center deeply unsettled by the encounter. Mercer had recognized something in him that Vincent himself was still coming to terms with, the capacity for calculated ruthlessness that had emerged during the conflict with Doyle. True to Mercer's word, a courier delivered an envelope to Vincent's office the following day containing a safe deposit box key and authorization paperwork. That afternoon, Vincent visited Continental Trust, was escorted to the vault, and left alone with box 4237. Inside was a single flash drive and a handwritten note in what Vincent recognized as Doyle's flowing script. For use if Dr. Keller becomes problematic. Contents include Phoenix medical records, financial irregularities from Keller's residency, and surveillance of his meeting with Anthony Russo, PD. Vincent pocketed the flash drive and note, returning the empty box to its slot in the vault wall. Later, alone in his study, he inserted the drive into his computer and reviewed its contents, evidence that could have destroyed his career and reputation if released. After confirming everything was there, Vincent placed the drive on his desk and stared at it for a long moment. Then he picked up a heavy paperweight and crushed the drive with a single, decisive blow. The physical destruction felt symbolic, the final severing of Doyle's influence on his life. Whatever leverage the man had hoped to maintain from beyond the grave was now neutralized. That night, Vincent called Melissa. "I met with Mercer today," he told her. "It was illuminating." "In what way?" she asked cautiously. Vincent described the meeting, including Mercer's strange respect and the safe deposit box, though he omitted specifics about the flash drive's contents. "He seemed to see us as similar in some way," Vincent concluded. "It was unsettling." Melissa was quiet for a moment. "Are you worried he might be right? That you crossed too many lines fighting them?" It was the question Vincent had been asking himself since leaving the detention center. "Sometimes," he admitted, "the person I became during those months, I didn't always recognize him." "I understand that feeling," Melissa said softly. "But Vincent, there's a fundamental difference. They use people as means to an end. You fought to protect people you love." Her words provided some comfort, though doubts lingered. The capacity for coldness he had discovered in himself during the conflict with Doyle and Mercer wasn't something that simply disappeared once the immediate threat passed. 2 weeks later, Mercer's plea deal was finalized. His testimony led to indictments against 12 local officials, 3 judges, and nearly 24 business associates. The corrupt network that had allowed Doyle to operate with impunity for decades was being systematically dismantled. Life settled into new patterns as summer approached. Vincent's foundation plans progressed, with architectural drawings for the research center on his grandfather's property and initial funding secured through his contacts in the medical community. Melissa excelled in her new role with the conservation department, finding purpose in protecting the environmental resources Doyle and Mercer had viewed merely as commodities to exploit. Most importantly, Lily thrived. Her academic performance remained stellar. Her nightmares had ceased entirely, and she moved between her parents' homes with increasing comfort. Dr. Winters pronounced her adjustment remarkable and reduced their family therapy to monthly maintenance sessions. On a warm evening in June, almost exactly 1 year after the restraining order had appeared on Vincent's door, he hosted a small gathering at his home, a celebration of Lily's successful completion of first grade. Anthony Russo came bearing an extravagant educational telescope. Beverly brought a science kit that promised 100 amazing experiments. Walcott, now promoted to captain, arrived with his wife and a handmade card from his granddaughter, who attended the same school as Lily. Melissa was the last to arrive, accompanied by a colleague from the conservation department, a botanist named Daniel, who clearly admired her. Vincent observed their interaction with mild curiosity, but no jealousy. That chapter of their lives was closed. As the adults chatted on the patio, while Lily showed her friends a room, Melissa approached Vincent with 2 glasses of wine. To surviving the year from hell, she proposed, offering him one. Vincent accepted with a small smile. To rebuilding what matters. They clinked glasses, the simple gesture acknowledging how far they had come. "Daniel seems nice," Vincent observed neutrally. Melissa glanced toward where the botanist was engaged in animated conversation with Beverly about native plant restoration. "He is," she agreed. "It's early days, but he's kind, straightforward. No hidden agendas." "I'm glad," Vincent said, and found he meant it sincerely. "You deserve that." Melissa studied him. "What about you? Any prospects on the horizon?" Vincent shook his head. "Not yet. I'm focused on Lily, the foundation, my work at the hospital. Romance can wait." As if summoned by her name, Lily burst onto the patio, proudly displaying a science fair ribbon. "Look what Miss Patterson gave me today," she exclaimed. "First place for my ecosystem project." Vincent and Melissa both knelt to examine the ribbon, their shared pride in their daughter creating a moment of perfect unity. "That's amazing, sweetheart," Melissa praised. "All that research really paid off. We should frame it for your room," Vincent suggested. "Right next to your solar system diagram." Lily beamed, then looked between her parents with sudden seriousness. "Are you 2 friends now? Like real friends?" The question caught them off guard. Vincent and Melissa exchanged glances wordlessly deciding on honesty. "We're something even more important than friends," Vincent explained carefully. "We're your parents, who both love you more than anything, and who respect each other very much. Even though we don't live in the same house anymore," Melissa added. Lily considered this. "Like Dr. Winters said, that families can look different, but still be strong." "Exactly like that," Vincent confirmed, impressed by her recall and understanding. Lily nodded, apparently satisfied, then raced off to rejoin her friends, the matter settled in her uncomplicated view of the world. Later that night, after the guests had departed and Lily was asleep, Vincent stood in his backyard gazing at the stars. The events of the past year played through his mind like scenes from someone else's life. The restraining order, the custody battle, the systematic dismantling of Doyle's network, the final confrontation, and now, this tentative peace. He had lost and found himself in that journey. The man who had opened the front door to find a restraining order taped to it had been decent, but perhaps complacent, believing in systems and norms that Doyle and his ilk manipulated with ease. The man standing here now understood darker truths about power and corruption, about his own capacity for calculated ruthlessness when what he loved was threatened. But he also understood something about redemption. Not the Hollywood version of complete absolution, but the messy, incomplete process of building something meaningful from the wreckage of destruction. Vincent's phone buzzed with a text from Beverly. "Judge Harriman signed off on the custody modification today. All official now. Congratulations." Vincent smiled slightly, pocketing his phone. The legal battle was finally, truly over. The victory he had fought so hard for was secured at last. Chapter 9, Reckoning. Autumn painted the lakeside property in brilliant hues of red and gold. 2 years had passed since the night Vincent had found the restraining order on his door. 2 years of battle, reconstruction, and careful realignment of his life's priorities. The research center, now in its final stages of construction, stood on the eastern edge of the property, a sleek, modern building designed to blend with the natural surroundings while housing state-of-the-art laboratories. The Vincent Keller Foundation for Environmental Medicine had attracted top researchers and generous funding, its mission to study the intersection of ecosystem health and human wellness resonating with both the scientific community and public health advocates. Vincent stood on the observation deck, reviewing blueprints with the project manager, when his phone rang. "Walcott. Thought you'd want to know," the police captain said without preamble. "Mercer died last night. Heart attack in his cell." Vincent absorbed this information silently. Calvin Mercer had been serving the negotiated 15-year sentence, his testimony having dismantled what remained of Doyle's network. "Any suspicious circumstances?" Vincent asked. "None. Natural causes according to the preliminary report. Man was 74 with a history of cardiac issues." Walcott paused. "Thought you might have feelings about it one way or another." Vincent gazed across the lake, contemplating. "Just the closing of a chapter," he said finally. "Thank you for letting me know." After hanging up, Vincent remained on the deck, reflecting on how thoroughly the landscape of his life had changed. Doyle dead, Mercer now gone as well. The corruption network they had built systematically dismantled, with several former officials still serving prison terms for their roles. His phone buzzed again. A text from Melissa. "Lily forgot her science project at my place. Dropping it by your office around 3, if that works." Their co-parenting relationship had settled into a functional, respectful dynamic. The modified custody arrangement gave Vincent primary custody, with Melissa having Lily 3 weekends per month and extended time during school breaks. It worked well for all of them, especially Lily, who had blossomed into a confident, academically gifted third grader with a passion for environmental science that delighted both her parents. As for Melissa, she had found her footing professionally with the conservation department, where she had recently been promoted to regional director. Her relationship with Daniel, the botanist, had developed into something serious. They had moved in together 6 months ago. Vincent harbored no ill will about this. Whatever romantic feelings he had once had for Melissa had been thoroughly excised during the betrayal and subsequent conflict. Vincent texted back a brief confirmation, then drove to the hospital for his afternoon surgeries. His professional life had never been better. As department head, he balanced administrative duties with the complex surgeries that remained his true passion. A recent profile in a medical journal had labeled him the surgeon with the golden hands, highlighting his remarkably low mortality rates and innovative techniques. At precisely 3:07 p.m., as Vincent was reviewing post-op notes in his office, a knock came at the door. "Come in," he called, looking up to see Melissa enter, carrying Lily's science project, an elaborate model of a watershed ecosystem. "Thanks for bringing this," Vincent said, clearing space on his desk for the project. She would have been devastated to miss the presentation tomorrow. Melissa nodded, lingering awkwardly in the doorway. "There's something else I wanted to discuss, if you have a minute." Vincent gestured to the chair across from his desk, noting the unusual tension in her manner. "Everything all right?" Melissa sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Daniel asked me to marry him last weekend. I said yes." Vincent studied her carefully, surprised by her evident nervousness about sharing this news. "Congratulations. He seems like a good man." "Thank you." Melissa relaxed slightly. "I wanted to tell you directly before Lily finds out, and to discuss logistics." "Of course," Vincent nodded. "Will you be staying in the same apartment?" "Actually, no. Daniel's been offered a position at the University of Oregon, a research fellowship in forest ecology." Melissa met his eyes directly. "I'd like to go with him, which means we need to talk about Lily." Vincent felt a cold stillness settle over him, the same focused calm that descended during complex surgeries. "You want to take her to Oregon? I want us to find a solution that works for everyone," Melissa clarified. "Obviously, I don't expect full custody, but perhaps a different arrangement. Summers with me, school year with you, or vice versa. That would mean changing her school, separating her from her friends, her routine." Vincent's voice remained level, but his mind was already calculating, strategizing. "Lily's thriving here. Her therapy is completed. Her academic performance is exceptional. Her social circle is stable." "I know," Melissa acknowledged, "but she loves Daniel too, and she'd have opportunities there. The ecological diversity of the Pacific Northwest, excellent schools." "No." The word was soft but definitive. Melissa blinked. "Vincent, I'm not suggesting this lightly. I've researched schools, found a house near a nature preserve that Lily would adore. The custody arrangement stays as is," Vincent stated. "If you choose to move across the country, that's your decision. But Lily remains here, where she's established and thriving." A flash of the old Melissa surfaced, determination hardening her features. "I'm not asking permission, Vincent. I'm proposing we discuss modifications to the custody agreement that reflect new circumstances." "New circumstances that you're choosing to create," Vincent pointed out. "Oregon is your choice, not a necessity. The job Daniel currently has is perfectly adequate. This is a career-defining opportunity for him," Melissa countered. "And Lily is a life-defining priority for me," Vincent replied evenly. "I want to uproot her for someone else's career advancement, especially not when that someone isn't even her parent." Melissa's expression tightened. "I hope we could discuss this reasonably, as we've managed to do with other co-parenting decisions. Daniel and I don't have to leave for 3 months. There's time to work out an arrangement that considers everyone's needs." "Everyone except Lily's," Vincent said coldly. "Her need for stability, for consistent education, for the support system she's built here. For both parents within reasonable proximity. Children adapt," Melissa argued. "And modern technology makes distance less significant. Video calls, regular visits." "I said no," Vincent interrupted, his tone final. "I won't agree to any modification that moves Lily across the country. If you want to pursue this legally, that's your prerogative. But I should warn you, between your history of false allegations and the documented evidence of how well Lily is doing in the current arrangement, no family court judge will rule in your favor." Melissa stared at him, realization dawning in her eyes. "You haven't changed at all, have you? Still ruthless, still uncompromising when it comes to what you want." "What I want," Vincent corrected, "is what's best for Lily. You once used her as a weapon against me." I haven't forgotten that, even if I've moved past it for her sake. That's not fair, Melissa protested. I've done everything possible to rebuild trust, to be a good co-parent. And now you're willing to disrupt her life completely for a man you've known less than 2 years. Vincent shook his head. Some patterns don't change, Melissa. Her face flushed with anger. This isn't about punishing me for past mistakes, Vincent. This is about Lily's future, which includes me and eventually Daniel as her stepfather. I'm not punishing you, Vincent replied calmly. I'm protecting my daughter from more upheaval. The custody arrangement stays as is. If you choose Oregon over proximity to Lily, that's your decision to make and explain to her. Melissa stood abruptly. This conversation isn't over. I'll have my lawyer contact Beverly. Vincent merely nodded. As you wish. After she left, Vincent sat motionless behind his desk, the cold calculation that had served him during the conflict with Doyle and Mercer settling back into place. He had known, somehow, that the peace of the past year was temporary, that sooner or later something would threaten what he had fought so hard to secure. That evening, he called Beverly, briefing her on Melissa's plans and his position. She doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, Beverly assured him. The current arrangement is working well for Lily by every objective measure. No judge will disrupt that without compelling necessity, which career advancement for a non-parent doesn't qualify as. Still, be prepared, Vincent instructed. Gather Lily's school records, therapy reports, anything that documents her stability and progress under the current arrangement. Already on it, Beverly replied. Though I hope Melissa reconsiders before this reaches the courtroom. Another legal battle won't be good for any of you, especially Lily. Vincent agreed abstractly, but his resolve remained unshaken. He would not surrender what mattered most. Not again, not ever. The following week brought a formal letter from Melissa's attorney proposing mediation to discuss custody modifications. Vincent instructed Beverly to respond with a firm refusal. The current arrangement stood non-negotiable. Melissa attempted to discuss the matter again during a parent-teacher conference, suggesting that perhaps Vincent might reconsider if he visited Oregon, saw the opportunities there for Lily. My answer hasn't changed, Vincent stated quietly as they walked to the parking lot afterward. And won't. Then you leave me no choice but to pursue this legally, Melissa replied, a hint of her old steel returning. Vincent merely nodded. As I said before, that's your prerogative. He was prepared when the motion for custody modification landed on Beverly's desk the following Monday. The filing cited significant change in circumstances and educational and environmental opportunities as justification for altering the custody arrangement to allow Lily to relocate to Oregon with Melissa and Daniel. Beverly was confident in their position. This won't go anywhere, she assured Vincent, but it will be stressful for everyone, especially Lily if she becomes aware of it. Vincent had already considered this. Lily knows nothing about this yet, and won't until there's a resolution. Melissa and I agreed on that much, at least. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for early December, just 6 weeks away. Vincent approached it with the same preparation he brought to complex surgeries, gathering evidence, securing expert testimony, documenting every aspect of Lily's stable, thriving life in her current environment. 2 weeks before the hearing, Vincent received an unexpected visitor at the hospital. Daniel Marshall, Melissa's fiancé, requested a meeting on a personal matter. Curious despite his suspicion, Vincent agreed to coffee in the hospital cafeteria. Daniel, a lean, thoughtful-looking man in his mid-40s, seemed nervous but determined. "Thank you for seeing me," he began. "I know this is unconventional. What can I do for you, Daniel?" Vincent asked directly. Daniel took a deep breath. "I wanted to speak with you, father to potential stepfather, about Lily and the situation with Oregon." He held up a hand as Vincent began to respond. "Please, just hear me out. I'm not here to argue or negotiate. I just want you to know something important." Vincent waited, expression neutral. "I've withdrawn from consideration for the Oregon position," Daniel said simply. "I've accepted an alternative offer from the university here, slightly less prestigious, but equally meaningful work." Vincent's surprise must have shown despite his effort to conceal it. Melissa doesn't know yet, Daniel continued. I wanted to tell you first, to assure you that there won't be any further legal proceedings. No custody battle. Why? Vincent asked bluntly. Daniel considered the question carefully. Because I love Melissa, and by extension, I care deeply about Lily's well-being. When I proposed, I didn't fully understand the complexity of your family situation, the importance of stability for Lily. After seeing the impact this potential move was having on Melissa, on your co-parenting relationship, he shrugged slightly. Some opportunities aren't worth the cost. Vincent studied the man across from him. Honest, forthright, seemingly genuine in his concern. I appreciate you telling me this, Vincent said finally, and your consideration for Lily's needs. Daniel nodded. I hope we can find a way forward that works for everyone. Lily is an amazing child. Bright, curious, compassionate. That speaks volumes about both you and Melissa as parents. After Daniel left, Vincent remained in the cafeteria, contemplating this unexpected development. He had been prepared for battle, had marshaled his resources, and hardened his resolve. The sudden removal of the threat left him in an unfamiliar state of suspension. That evening, his phone rang. Melissa. Daniel told me what he did, she said without preamble. That he spoke to you, that he's declined the Oregon position. Yes, Vincent confirmed. He seems like a thoughtful man. Melissa was quiet for a moment. I'm withdrawing the custody modification request. The hearing is canceled. I appreciate that, Vincent said carefully. I want you to know, Melissa continued, her voice low and controlled, that I wasn't trying to take Lily away from you. I truly believe we could find an arrangement that served everyone's needs. Vincent considered his response. The cold, tactical part of him, the part honed during the conflict with Doyle, wanted to press his advantage to ensure this threat could never resurface. But another part, perhaps the surgeon who understood that healing sometimes required restraint, urged moderation. Lily needs both of us, he said finally, here, where she's established and thriving. I'm glad you've reconsidered. It wasn't forgiveness. Vincent hadn't forgotten or truly forgiven the original betrayal, the use of Lily as a weapon against him. But it was acknowledgement of their shared interest in their daughter's well-being. Daniel's a good man, Vincent added, surprising himself at the admission. Better than Doyle. Better choices, better priorities. Yes, Melissa agreed quietly. He is. The call ended shortly after, both parties having said what was necessary and little more. 6 months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Vincent sat on the observation deck of the now-completed research center, watching Lily collect water samples from the lake edge for a science project. The Vincent Keller Foundation was fully operational, its work already garnering attention in both scientific and environmental communities. His phone buzzed with a message from Anthony Russo, final Doyle associate sentenced today. 15 years, no parole. Network officially dismantled. Vincent read the message with quiet satisfaction. The corruption that had nearly destroyed him had been methodically, completely eradicated. Every participant identified, prosecuted, removed from positions of power. Lily came bounding up the steps, her collection vials carefully labeled. Dad, I found 3 different species of aquatic invertebrates. Can we look at them under the microscope in the lab? Of course, Vincent smiled, rising to follow her excitement. Let's see what you've discovered. Inside the state-of-the-art laboratory, Vincent helped Lily prepare slides, watching her growing confidence with the equipment. At 8 years old, she already showed the precise focus and steady hands that had served him so well in surgery. Do you think Mom and Daniel will want to see these? Lily asked as she adjusted the microscope. For their wedding? Vincent chuckled. Perhaps not at the actual ceremony this weekend, but I'm sure they'd love to see your findings afterward. Melissa and Daniel's wedding was a small affair planned for the local botanical gardens, a setting that reflected their shared love of nature. Vincent had agreed to bring Lily and had even contributed to her junior bridesmaid dress, a gesture of co-parenting goodwill that had surprised many. Dad, Lily looked up from a microscope, her expression suddenly serious. Are you happy? The question caught Vincent off guard. What makes you ask that, sweetheart? Lily shrugged slightly. Mom seems really happy with Daniel, and you're always busy with surgeries or for the foundation, but you're mostly alone. Vincent considered his answer carefully. Happiness comes in different forms, Lily. I'm fulfilled by my work, by this center, by the time we spend together. That's my version of happiness. Lily seemed to accept this, returning to her examination of the microscopic organisms. But her question lingered in Vincent's mind throughout the evening and into the following days. Was he happy? The question was almost irrelevant. He had achieved his objectives. Lily was safe and thriving under his primary care. His career had reached new heights. The foundation was realizing his vision for combining environmental and medical research, and those who had threatened what he valued had been systematically neutralized. Happiness wasn't what had driven him through the darkest periods of the conflict with Doyle and Mercer. Purpose had. Determination. The cold, relentless resolve to protect what was his and punish those who had tried to take it. The weekend of Melissa's wedding arrived with perfect weather. Vincent delivered Lily to the botanical gardens early for photographs, exchanging civil greetings with Melissa, who looked genuinely radiant in her simple white dress. "Thank you for bringing her," Melissa said as Lily ran off to join the flower girl for final preparations. "And for everything else." Vincent nodded. She's excited about her role. Practiced her walk all week. An awkward silence fell between them. Too much history, too many complex emotions. "Will you stay?" Melissa asked unexpectedly. "For the ceremony, at least?" It would mean a lot to Lily. Vincent hesitated. He had planned to return for Lily afterward, maintaining the careful distance he had established. "Please," Melissa added softly. "It would help her see that we can all move forward, that the past is truly behind us." Vincent considered the request. Not for Melissa's sake. He had never fully forgiven her betrayal. Never would, but for Lily's. "I'll stay for the ceremony," he agreed finally. From a seat in the back row, Vincent watched as Daniel and Melissa exchanged vows beneath a trellis of climbing roses. Lily performed her junior bridesmaid duties flawlessly, her face alight with excitement. During the reception that followed, Vincent remained briefly, accepting a glass of champagne and making polite conversation with other guests. He was preparing to leave when Daniel approached him. "Thank you for staying," Daniel said sincerely. "It means more than you know, to Melissa, to Lily, and to me." Vincent nodded. "Lily seems happy." "She is." Daniel glanced to where Lily was twirling on the dance floor with the flower girl. "She's an extraordinary child. I want you to know that I understand my role in her life. Not to replace you, but to be another supportive adult who cares about her well-being." Vincent studied the man before him. Decent, straightforward, without Doyle's manipulation or hidden agendas. "Treat them well," Vincent said simply. "That's all I ask." As he drove home that evening, Vincent reflected on the journey of the past 3 years. From the devastating betrayal that had begun with a restraining order taped to his door, through the calculated dismantling of Doyle's network, to this new equilibrium. Not perfect, but stable. Functional. His phone rang through the car speaker. "Beverly." "Just checking in," she said. "How was the wedding?" "Fine," Vincent replied. Lily enjoyed herself. Beverly was quiet for a moment. "You know, most men wouldn't have handled this situation with such composure. Attending your ex-wife's wedding to another man, after everything that happened." "I didn't do it for Melissa," Vincent clarified. "It was for Lily." "I know," Beverly said gently. "That's what makes you different from men like Doyle. Everything you did, even the ruthless parts, was to protect, not to possess or control." Vincent considered this distinction as he turned onto the private road leading to his lakeside property. Perhaps Beverly was right. The cold calculation that had guided him through the conflict had always been in service to protection, not domination. The research center came into view, its sleek profile silhouetted against the setting sun. Beyond it, the lake shimmered with golden light, the surrounding forest vibrant with spring growth. All of it preserved, protected from Doyle's destructive plans. Vincent parked and walked to the observation deck, gazing out over the property that had nearly cost him everything. In the distance, a pair of eagles soared over the water, the same pair that had nested here for years, according to the center's ecologists. His phone buzzed with a text message from Lily. Had the best time. Can we go fishing at the cabin tomorrow? Vincent smiled slightly. Absolutely. First thing in the morning. As darkness fell, Vincent remained on the deck, reflecting on Lily's earlier question about happiness. The answer came to him now with unexpected clarity. Happiness wasn't the absence of conflict or the presence of perfect circumstances. It was the knowledge that what mattered most was secure: his daughter, his work, his purpose. That the threats had been neutralized, the betrayers held accountable. Vincent had never sought forgiveness for the calculated ruthlessness he had employed against Doyle and his network, nor had he truly forgiven those who had betrayed him. But he had built something meaningful from the wreckage they had created, something that would endure long after the pain and conflict had faded from memory. That, perhaps, was victory enough. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Life Illusion. Frederick Rick Frazier had built what many would consider the perfect life. At 34, the former Marine gunnery sergeant commanded respect in his small Ohio town of Millbrook. His security consulting firm, Sentinel Solutions, specialized in high-end residential and corporate protection, drawing clients from 3 states. Rick's military precision and tactical expertise had earned him a reputation as the man to call when safety mattered most. His wife of 12 years, Molly Frazier, was Millbrook's golden girl. At 31, she ran the town's most successful real estate agency, inheriting both the business and her late father's political connections. Her auburn hair and emerald eyes had caught Rick's attention during his first week back from his final deployment, but it was her sharp business acumen that sealed their partnership. Together, they owned the sprawling Frazier estate on the hill overlooking the town, a testament to their combined success. Their daughter, 8-year-old Hannah Frazier, was the light of Rick's world. Sharp as her mother, but with her father's tactical mind, she'd already mastered chess and showed an uncanny ability to read people's intentions. Rick often joked that Hannah would either become a general or rule the world, possibly both. But perfection, Rick had learned in the Marines, was often the calm before the storm. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday evening in October. Rick returned from a 3-day security consultation in Columbus to find Molly on the phone, her voice unusually soft and filled with laughter he hadn't heard in months. She quickly ended the call when she saw him, claiming it was a client discussing a difficult property sale. Margaret Stewart's divorce is getting messy, Molly explained, not meeting his eyes. Her husband's fighting for the lake house. Rick's combat-honed instincts whispered warnings, but he pushed them aside. Marriage wasn't a battlefield, and paranoia was a luxury he couldn't afford in civilian life. Or so he thought. The second crack came 3 weeks later during Hannah's school play. Rick scanned the audience, a habit from his military days, when he spotted Molly texting furiously. Her fingers flew across the screen with an urgency that made his jaw tighten. When she noticed his stare, she quickly pocketed the phone. "Sorry, honey. Emergency with the Patterson listing," she whispered. But Rick had seen the contact name before she closed the phone. Officer Terry. His blood chilled. Terry Snyder, Millbrook's golden boy cop, divorced 2 years ago, and Molly's high school boyfriend before Rick entered the picture. The third crack shattered everything. Rick's security business required him to maintain relationships with local law enforcement. Detective Sam Carney, his oldest friend in the department, invited him for their monthly poker game at Murphy's Bar. The conversation flowed as freely as the whiskey until Sam's partner, Detective Will Bonner, made an offhand comment that stopped Rick's heart. "Terry's been walking on air lately," Will chuckled, dealing another hand. "Man's got a spring in his step like he's getting laid regular-like. Lucky bastard finally found someone willing to put up with his badge bunny complex." The room fell silent. Sam shot Will a warning look, but the damage was done. Rick's poker face, perfected through years of military interrogations, didn't crack, but inside, a cold fury began to build. Badge Bunny Complex. Terry's reputation for pursuing married women was an open secret in the department, though no one spoke about it directly. Terry always did like his conquests. Rick said carefully, his voice steady as granite. Some habits die hard. The game continued, but Rick's mind was elsewhere, cataloging every late-night Molly claimed to be showing houses, every canceled dinner due to difficult clients, every time she'd emerge from the shower smelling like unfamiliar cologne. He excused himself early, claiming fatigue from his latest consultation. But instead of heading home, Rick drove to his secondary office, a nondescript building downtown that housed his more specialized equipment. Hidden behind the legitimate security business was Rick's true expertise: intelligence gathering and tactical operations. His military record was spotless, but his methods in civilian life operated in grayer areas. Rick activated his surveillance system, cross-referencing phone records, credit card transactions, and GPS data. Within hours, the picture became devastatingly clear. Hotel charges during his business trips, deleted text messages recovered from phone backups, GPS coordinates showing Molly's car at Terry's apartment during school hours. The evidence painted a picture of betrayal spanning 6 months. But what cut deepest was the recording he found on Molly's cloud storage, a conversation between her and Terry discussing their future plans. Rick's getting suspicious. Molly's voice whispered through his speakers. "Maybe we should slow down." "Relax, baby," Terry's voice responded. "Your husband's a jarhead. All muscle, no brains. He'll never figure it out. And even if he does, what's he gonna do? I'm the law in this town." Rick's hands slowly clenched into fists as Terry continued. "Besides, once we're married, Hannah will have a real father. Someone who can teach her respect for authority instead of that military bullshit." The recording ended, but Rick sat in the darkness for another hour, his mind working through scenarios with mechanical precision. In the Marines, betrayal was met with swift justice. In civilian life, the rules were different, but the stakes were higher. He wouldn't just expose them. He wouldn't simply divorce Molly and move on. Terry Snyder had made a fatal mistake by threatening Hannah's future and mocking Rick's service. In the Corps, they had a saying, "No mercy for traitors." Rick Frazier was about to remind Millbrook why Marines were feared. Chapter 2. The Web of Deception. Rick spent the following 3 weeks becoming a ghost in his own life. To Molly and Hannah, he appeared unchanged, still the devoted husband and father, still managing his security business with military efficiency. But beneath the surface, Rick was conducting the most important reconnaissance mission of his life. His investigation revealed that Terry Snyder wasn't just sleeping with his wife. The corrupt cop had been laying groundwork for something far more sinister. Terry's personnel file, accessed through Rick's law enforcement contacts, showed a pattern of suspicious arrests, evidence tampering allegations that never quite stuck, and a disturbing number of domestic violence calls to his apartment that somehow disappeared from the system. But it was Terry's financial records that painted the most revealing picture. For a small-town police officer making $52,000 annually, Terry lived remarkably well. His apartment was upscale, his truck was brand new, and his credit card statement showed expensive dinners and weekend getaways that should have been impossible on his salary. Rick's military contacts proved invaluable. His former squad leader, now working private security in Chicago, helped him trace Terry's extra income to a network of corrupt cops running protection for local drug dealers. Terry wasn't just unfaithful. He was dirty, using his badge to intimidate witnesses and plant evidence on anyone who threatened his operation. "Your boy's got friends in high places," Jeremiah Stewart, Rick's contact, explained during a secure phone call. "Word is he's been feeding information to the Bassett crime family. They've got judges, prosecutors, even some feds on payroll." The revelation made Rick's blood run cold. Molly wasn't just cheating, she was unknowingly involved with organized crime. Worse, Terry's plan became crystal clear. Eliminate Rick, marry Molly for her political connections and real estate business, and use the Frazier family fortune to expand his criminal enterprise. Rick's surveillance of Molly revealed the depth of her betrayal. She wasn't just having an affair. She was actively planning his destruction. Hidden cameras in their home captured conversations between Molly and her sister, Dawn Nixon, where they discussed Terry's solution to the Rick problem. Terry says once Rick's out of the picture, everything will be so much easier. Molly confided to Dawn over wine in their kitchen. Rick's business connections, his military contacts, Terry can use all of it. And Hannah will finally have a father who's not damaged by war. Dawn, always the practical sister, raised concerns. But what if Rick finds out? You know what they say about his temper. Molly laughed, a sound that once filled Rick with joy but now cut like a blade. Terry's got it handled. He says there are ways to neutralize threats permanently. Police work has its benefits. Rick realized he was walking into a trap designed to either destroy his reputation or end his life. Terry wasn't just stealing his wife. He was planning to frame him for crimes that would send him to prison or worse. The corrupt cop had resources, connections, and the backing of organized crime. But Rick had something Terry underestimated: the tactical genius that made him one of the most decorated non-commissioned officers in Marine Corps history. He began building his own network. His security business provided legitimate cover to recruit assets. Former military personnel now working in law enforcement, private security, and government agencies. These weren't corrupt officials. They were patriots who understood the difference between justice and the law. Oliver Farrell, a former Navy SEAL now working for the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force, became Rick's inside man. Oliver had been tracking the Bassett family's police corruption for 2 years, but lacked the evidence needed for prosecution. Terry Snyder's a small fish, Oliver explained during a clandestine meeting in a Columbus parking garage. But he's connected to bigger problems. If we can flip him, we can take down the entire network. I'm not interested in flipping him, Rick replied coldly. I want him destroyed. Oliver studied Rick's face and saw something that made him take a step back. Jesus, Rick, I know they hurt you, but don't do anything stupid. These people are dangerous. So am I. Rick's plan began taking shape. He wouldn't just expose Terry and Molly. He would manipulate them into destroying themselves. Every move would be calculated, every consequence anticipated. He would use their own corruption against them, turning their weapons into instruments of their downfall. The first phase involved misdirection. Rick began deliberately leaving trails of evidence for Terry to find, making himself appear vulnerable and unaware. He staged phone conversations where Terry's surveillance devices would pick up discussions about valuable assets, overseas accounts, and business vulnerabilities that didn't actually exist. Meanwhile, Rick documented everything. Every meeting between Molly and Terry. Every criminal transaction Terry facilitated. Every piece of evidence that would eventually bury them both. Hannah remained oblivious to the storm brewing around her, but Rick noticed her quiet intelligence had picked up on tensions. She began asking pointed questions about Mommy's late-night phone calls and Daddy's frequent business trips. Daddy, Hannah said one evening as Rick tucked her into bed, are you and Mommy fighting? Rick's heart clenched. His daughter deserved better than the destruction about to unfold, but she also deserved the truth about who her mother really was. Sometimes adults have disagreements, sweetheart, he said carefully. But no matter what happens, you'll always be safe. Daddy promises. Hannah's green eyes, so much like her mother's, studied his face with unsettling intensity. Are the bad people trying to hurt us? The question stopped Rick cold. Hannah had inherited more than Molly's looks. She had Rick's tactical instincts. Somehow, his 8-year-old daughter sensed the danger better than the adults around her. No one will ever hurt you, Rick promised and meant it. Whatever was coming, Hannah would be protected. As November turned to December, Rick's investigation revealed the final piece of Terry's plan. The corrupt cop intended to frame Rick for drug possession during a traffic stop, using planted evidence and manufactured witness statements. The scheme would destroy Rick's security clearance, end his business, and send him to prison where Terry's criminal contacts would ensure he never came home. But Terry had made one crucial error. He'd underestimated the man he was trying to destroy. Rick Frazier had survived 3 combat deployments, earned 2 Bronze Stars, and commanded Marines in some of the most dangerous operations in modern military history. He'd faced enemies who understood warfare, honor, and the costs of battle. Terry Snyder was about to learn that there were fates worse than death, and Rick knew how to deliver them all. Chapter 3. The Trap Springs. December brought an early snow to Millbrook, blanketing the town in deceptive beauty. Rick used the weather to his advantage, knowing that winter conditions would limit escape routes and force his enemies into predictable patterns. His surveillance showed that Terry planned to execute his frame-up before Christmas, likely during one of Rick's scheduled business trips. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Rick received a call from a potential client in Cincinnati, a wealthy businessman requiring a comprehensive security assessment for his estate. The timing was perfect, 3 days away from Millbrook, giving Terry ample opportunity to plant evidence and prepare his trap. "I'll miss you," Molly said as Rick packed his overnight bag, her performance Oscar-worthy. She even managed tears as she kissed him goodbye. "Drive safely, honey." Rick pulled out of their driveway, knowing he would never return as the same man. By the time he came back, everyone in Millbrook would understand exactly who Frederick Frazier really was. But Rick never made it to Cincinnati. Instead, he drove to a safe house Oliver Farrell had arranged, a cabin 40 miles north of Millbrook where Rick could monitor Terry's activities without being detected. His surveillance network was now fully operational. Hidden cameras in his house, GPS trackers on Molly's car, and audio surveillance of Terry's apartment and patrol vehicle. The drama unfolded exactly as Rick anticipated. Within hours of his departure, Molly called Terry. "He's gone. You have 3 days." Terry's response chilled Rick's blood. "Baby, by the time I'm done, your husband will be facing 20 years minimum. And the best part? He'll never see it coming." That evening, Rick watched through his hidden cameras as Terry entered his house using a key Molly had provided. The corrupt cop moved through Rick's home like he owned it, touching Molly's belongings with possessive familiarity that made Rick's jaw clench. But it was Terry's interaction with Hannah that pushed Rick past the point of no return. "Hey there, sweetheart," Terry said, approaching Hannah as she did homework at the kitchen table. "How would you like to have a new daddy?" Hannah, wise beyond her years, looked up with suspicious eyes. "I already have a daddy." "Well, sometimes things change," Terry replied, his voice taking on an edge. "Sometimes bad daddies have to go away, and good daddies take their place." "My daddy's not bad," Hannah said firmly. "He protects people." Terry's laugh was cruel. "Your daddy's about to learn what happens to people who don't respect the law." Rick's hands trembled with rage as he watched Terry ruffle his daughter's hair with mock affection. The corrupt cop had just signed his own death warrant. The next morning, Terry began his operation. Rick watched through traffic cameras as the cop positioned himself along Route 7, the main highway leading back from Cincinnati. Terry had called in favors to ensure he'd be the responding officer to any traffic stops in that area, and he prepared a bag of cocaine specifically for planting in Rick's vehicle. But Rick wasn't coming from Cincinnati. Instead, he was 15 minutes away, watching Terry's every move through multiple surveillance feeds. Oliver Farrell's FBI task force was positioned discreetly throughout the area, recording everything. This wasn't just about destroying Terry. It was about dismantling the entire corruption network. At 2:30 p.m., Rick began his approach, driving his secondary vehicle, a nondescript sedan Terry wouldn't recognize. He activated the special recording device Oliver had provided, ensuring every word of the encounter would be captured in court-admissible quality. Rick's phone rang as he approached Terry's position. Molly's name appeared on the screen. "Honey," she said, her voice artificially concerned, "I just heard on the police scanner that there's been some kind of incident on Route 7. Please be careful driving home." "Thanks for the warning," Rick replied, his voice steady. "I'll be extra cautious." What Molly didn't know was that she'd just provided evidence of conspiracy. Her knowledge of Terry's location and timing proved her involvement in the setup. Rick rounded the bend and saw Terry's patrol car, positioned perfectly for an ambush. The corrupt cop activated his lights and pulled Rick over with predatory efficiency. "Step out," Terry yelled, approaching the car with theatrical aggression. "Get out of the vehicle now." Rick complied, his movements deliberately slow and non-threatening. He needed Terry to commit fully to the frame-up before revealing his hand. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Terry snapped handcuffs on Rick's wrists while other officers arrived. Backup Terry had called to witness his heroic drug bust. Terry searched Rick's car with exaggerated thoroughness, his body camera recording every movement. Rick knew the corrupt cop would claim to find drugs hidden in the vehicle, providing evidence of Rick's criminal activity. "Look what I found." Terry held up a bag of white powder, addressing the camera and witness officers with dramatic flair. "Mr. Frazier, you're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute." Rick's response was calm and measured. "Officer Snyder, I think you should check that evidence more carefully." Terry's confidence faltered slightly. "What did you say?" "I said you should check your evidence," Rick repeated. "Because it's not cocaine." Terry examined the bag more closely, his face paling as he realized the white powder was simple baking soda. Rick had anticipated the plant and replaced Terry's drugs with harmless substitutes days earlier. But the real trap was yet to spring. "Daddy!" Hannah's voice rang out from the patrol car's back seat, where Rick had hidden her the night before as part of his elaborate counter-operation. Terry spun around, shocked to see the 8-year-old girl emerge from his own vehicle. "What the hell? I was playing games," Hannah announced loudly, holding up her iPad. "I recorded everything." The color drained from Terry's face as he realized the implications. Hannah had been hidden in his patrol car, recording his entire operation from inside the vehicle. Every word, every action, every moment of the frame-up was captured on video from an angle that would be impossible to dispute. Rick smiled coldly as Terry reached for Hannah. "I wouldn't touch her if I were you, Officer Snyder. Not with all these witnesses watching." The other officers looked confused, unsure what was happening, but increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. Rick could see them processing the implications. Why was a child in Terry's patrol car? How'd you get there? What was on that recording? "You're done, Marine," Terry snarled, desperation creeping into his voice. 20 years minimum. But his threats rang hollow. The trap had been sprung, and Terry was the one caught in its jaws. Rick's backup plan activated as FBI vehicles surrounded the scene. Oliver Farrell stepped out of an unmarked car, his badge prominently displayed. "Ladies and gentlemen," Oliver announced to the assembled officers, "you're all witnesses to a federal investigation into police corruption. Officer Snyder, you're under arrest." Terry's world collapsed in real time as he realized he'd been outmaneuvered by the jarhead he'd so thoroughly underestimated. The corrupt cop had walked into a trap so perfectly constructed that every move he made only tightened the noose around his neck. But Rick's revenge was just beginning. Chapter 4: The Unraveling. The Millbrook Police Department transformed into a federal crime scene within hours. Rick watched from Oliver Farrell's command vehicle as FBI agents systematically dismantled Terry Snyder's corruption network. Hannah's iPad video had provided the final piece of evidence needed to activate sealed federal warrants that had been prepared for months. "Your daughter's a natural operative," Oliver commented, reviewing Hannah's recording. "She got every angle, captured all the audio, and never missed a detail. Hell, she's better than half my surveillance teams." Rick felt a mixture of pride and sorrow watching his 8-year-old daughter demonstrate tactical intelligence that rivaled trained professionals. Hannah had inherited more than his instincts. She'd developed survival skills that no child should need. "She learned to read people by watching her mother lie," Rick said quietly. "Kids know when something's wrong, even when adults pretend otherwise." The federal investigation moved with military precision. Terry's apartment was raided simultaneously with the traffic stop, revealing evidence of his criminal enterprise. Cash bundles, burner phones, detailed records of bribes paid to judges and prosecutors, and photographs documenting his victims' activities. Terry hadn't just been corrupt. He'd been conducting surveillance on dozens of Millbrook residents, building blackmail material for future use. Among Terry's files, Rick discovered something that made his blood freeze. Detailed floor plans of the Frazier estate, surveillance photos of Hannah's school schedule, and a typed document titled Elimination Protocol. Terry hadn't just planned to frame Rick. He'd prepared to eliminate him permanently if the legal approach failed. "Jesus Christ," Oliver muttered, reading over Rick's shoulder. "This isn't corruption, it's domestic terrorism." How long has this bastard been planning your murder? Long enough to make detailed preparations, Rick replied, his voice cold as Arctic wind. But not long enough to understand who he was targeting. The scope of Terry's criminal network shocked even federal investigators. Phone records reveal connections to organized crime families in 3 states, drug trafficking operations, and a human trafficking ring that used Millbrook as a way station. Terry's badge had provided perfect cover for criminal activities that generated over $2 million annually. But the most devastating revelation came from Terry's personal files, detailed plans to eliminate not just Rick, but eventually Hannah as well. Terry viewed Rick's daughter as a potential witness who might someday remember details that could expose his operation. The corrupt cop had already selected a foster family, criminal associates who specialized in making inconvenient children disappear permanently. Rick's hands trembled as he read Terry's notes about Hannah. Subject demonstrates unusual intelligence and observational skills. Potential long-term security risk. Recommend permanent solution after appropriate waiting period. He was going to kill my daughter, Rick said, his voice deadly quiet. Oliver had seen Rick angry before, but never like this. The Marine's calm exterior masked a rage so profound it seemed to alter the air around him. Rick, I know this is personal, but you need to let us handle this through proper channels. Proper channels? Rick laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Oliver, this man planned to murder my 8-year-old daughter. There are no proper channels for that. While federal agents processed Terry's apartment, Rick's attention turned to Molly. His wife remained at their house, unaware that her world was about to collapse. Rick's surveillance showed her frantically trying to contact Terry, growing increasingly panicked as her calls went unanswered. By evening, news of Terry's arrest had spread through Millbrook's law enforcement community. Molly finally understood something had gone catastrophically wrong with their plan. Rick watched through hidden cameras as she paced their bedroom, making desperate phone calls to criminal contacts Terry had introduced her to. This is Molly Frazier, she said in her phone, her voice shaking. Terry's been arrested. I need to know what that means for me. The response, captured clearly by Rick's surveillance, chilled his soul. Mrs. Frazier, you've become a liability. We'll be in touch regarding cleanup protocols. Rick realized Molly's life was now in danger from Terry's criminal associates. Despite her betrayal, despite her willingness to participate in his destruction, she was still Hannah's mother. More importantly, she possessed information that could help federal investigators dismantle the entire network. But Rick's protective instincts warred with his desire for revenge. Molly had chosen her path, aligned herself with people who planned to murder their daughter. She deserved whatever consequences followed. His phone rang. Molly's name appeared on the screen. Rick, she sobbed into the phone, her composure finally cracking. Something terrible has happened. Terry's been arrested. I don't understand what's going on. Don't you? Rick's voice was Arctic. Because I understand perfectly. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. Molly slowly realized Rick knew everything. Rick, please. I can explain. Explain what, Molly? Explain how you helped plan my murder? Explain how you were willing to let them kill Hannah? Explain how you sold our family to criminals? Molly's sobs intensified. You don't understand. Terry said you were involved in illegal activities. He said you were dangerous, that Hannah needed protection. Stop lying. Rick's command cut through her hysteria. I have recordings, Molly. Every conversation, every plan, every detail of your betrayal. I know Terry's associates are coming for you. The question is, do you want to live long enough to see Hannah grow up? What do you mean? I mean Terry's criminal friends consider you a liability now. They're planning to eliminate loose ends. You have maybe 6 hours before they make their move. Molly's panic reached new heights. Rick, please. You have to help me. I'm sorry. I was confused. I made mistakes. You made choices. Rick corrected. Now you live with consequences. But I'll offer you one opportunity for redemption. Tell the FBI everything you know about Terry's operation. Every name, every location, every detail. Help them destroy the network that planned to murder our daughter. And if I cooperate, then you might live long enough to explain to Hannah why her mother tried to have her father killed. Rick ended the call, leaving Molly to contemplate her limited options. He felt no satisfaction in her terror. only cold calculation. Molly's cooperation would help federal investigators, but more importantly, it would serve Rick's ultimate purpose, ensuring that everyone who threatened his family faced complete destruction. But Terry's criminal associates weren't Rick's only concern. The corrupt cop's arrest had triggered a larger conflict. The Bassett crime family, which had protected Terry's operation, now faced exposure through his captured files. They would move aggressively to eliminate witnesses and destroy evidence. Rick's war was expanding beyond personal revenge into something far more dangerous, a direct conflict with organized crime. But Frederick Frazier had spent years preparing for exactly this kind of battle. His security business provided cover for the weapons, equipment, and personnel needed to wage war against Terry's criminal network. As night fell on Millbrook, Rick made final preparations for the next phase of his operation. Terry's arrest was just the beginning. The corrupt cop's associates, the crime families that protected him, and every person who had threatened Hannah would learn why Marines never left enemies alive. Rick's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your family's debt will be paid in blood." He smiled coldly and typed his response. "Come and collect." Chapter 5. War comes to Millbrook. Rick spent the next 48 hours transforming his home into a fortress. His security business had provided perfect cover for acquiring military-grade equipment. Thermal imaging systems, motion sensors, reinforced barriers, and enough firepower to outfit a Marine squad. If Terry's criminal associates wanted war, Rick would give him a conflict they'd never forget. Oliver Farrell's FBI task force established a command post in downtown Millbrook, but Rick knew federal protection had limitations. The Bassett crime family had survived decades of law enforcement pressure by eliminating witnesses before they could testify. They wouldn't hesitate to target Hannah to silence Molly's cooperation. "We can provide protective custody," Oliver offered during a secure meeting at the safe house. "Move your family to a federal facility until the trials conclude." "No." Rick's response was immediate and non-negotiable. "I won't spend years hiding from criminals, and I won't let them believe they can threaten my daughter without consequences." Oliver studied Rick's face and recognized the determination of a warrior preparing for his final battle. "Rick, these aren't street thugs. The Bassett family has killed federal agents, judges, prosecutors. They have resources you can't imagine. So do I." Rick's first move was eliminating the immediate threat to his family. Molly had agreed to federal protection in exchange for full cooperation, but her information revealed the scope of danger facing anyone connected to Terry's arrest. The Bassett family maintained a network of assassins, corrupt officials, and criminal contacts throughout the Midwest. They could strike anywhere, anytime, using methods that would appear accidental. But Rick had advantages they didn't expect. His security business had attracted clients from military, intelligence, and law enforcement communities. These weren't random contacts. They were warriors who understood honor, loyalty, and the difference between justice and law. The first attack came at midnight on the third day. Rick's thermal sensors detected 4 figures approaching the estate through the wooded areas surrounding his property. Professional killers, moving with tactical precision, armed with suppressed weapons and explosive devices. They'd studied the property layout and planned to eliminate everyone inside before local police could respond. They'd made one crucial error, assuming Rick would fight defensively. Instead of waiting for the attack, Rick went hunting. The first assassin died without knowing his target had become his predator. Rick moved through the winter darkness like a ghost, using terrain knowledge and military skills that far exceeded his enemy's criminal training. A knife to the throat, quick and silent, before dragging the body into concealment. The second killer realized something was wrong when his partner stopped responding to radio calls. He tried to retreat, calling for backup on encrypted channels. Rick intercepted the transmission using military-grade equipment, learning the assault team's full composition and backup plans. "This is Shadow 1, the surviving assassin reported. Primary target is armed and mobile. Recommend abort and implement fallback protocols." Rick smiled coldly. Fallback protocols meant targeting Hannah's school, Molly's federal safe house, or other locations where his family might be vulnerable. But Rick had anticipated this response and prepared accordingly. Negative on abort, came the reply. Asset too valuable to lose. Complete the mission. The criminal organization had just made a fatal mistake, prioritizing Rick's elimination over operational security. Their determination to kill him would provide the evidence needed to destroy their entire network. Rick eliminated the remaining assassins with mechanical efficiency, then used their communications equipment to monitor the organization's response. Backup teams were converging on Millbrook from 3 directions, while coordinators prepared strikes against federal safe houses and Hannah School. But Rick had spent weeks preparing for exactly this scenario. His former Marines had quietly moved into position throughout Millbrook during the previous 48 hours. Jeremiah Stewart commanded sniper teams positioned on strategic high ground. Dave Patterson and his explosives expertise had prepared kill zones along every route into town. Oliver Farrell's federal agents provided legal cover, but Rick's warriors would do the actual fighting. The battle for Millbrook began at dawn. Bassett family reinforcements arrived expecting to overwhelm local resistance and eliminate witness quickly. Instead, they drove into the most sophisticated ambush since Operation Iraqi Freedom. Rick's communications center provided real-time intelligence, while his sniper teams engaged targets at maximum range. Contact, 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 Jeremiah's voice crackled through encrypted radios. Multiple vehicles, northwest approach. Engaging now. The first criminal convoy never made it past the town limits. Dave Patterson's improvised explosive devices disabled their vehicles while sniper fire eliminated survivors attempting to flee on foot. The message was clear. Millbrook was now a war zone, and Marines on the battlefield. The Bassett family's response escalated quickly. They called in reinforcements from other crime families, corrupt law enforcement officials, and hired mercenaries. What had begun as a simple witness elimination had become a full-scale military operation. But escalation worked in Rick's favor. Every criminal reinforcement meant more evidence of the conspiracy. Every corrupt official who participated meant additional federal charges. Every escalating action provided justification for Rick's increasingly brutal response. By noon, 15 criminals were dead. Federal agents had arrested 12 corrupt officials, and the Bassett family faced the largest organized crime investigation in Ohio history. The war they'd started to silence witnesses had instead exposed their entire operation to federal scrutiny. Rick received a call from an unknown number, the same criminal contact who'd threatened his family days earlier. Frazier, the voice was older now, tired. This ends now. You've cost us too much. Name your price for walking away. My price. Rick laughed. You threatened to kill my 8-year-old daughter. There's no price. Everyone has a price. Money, power, protection. I want bodies, Rick interrupted. Every person who planned to hurt Hannah. Every person who facilitated Terry's operation. Every person who thought they could threaten a Marine's family. I want them all dead or in federal prison. That's not negotiation. That's war. Exactly. Rick ended the call, knowing the Bassett family would interpret his refusal as weakness. They'd assume overwhelming force could still achieve their objectives. They were about to learn why Marines were called devil dogs by their enemies. The second wave arrived that evening. 30 criminals armed with military weapons, supported by corrupt police officers and hired mercenaries. They moved through Millbrook like an occupying army, prepared to kill anyone who resisted their search for Rick and his family. They'd made their final mistake. Rick's response wasn't just tactical, it was personal. These criminals had transformed his hometown into a battlefield, threatened his neighbors, and traumatized his daughter. Military justice demanded proportional response. Marine justice demanded total annihilation. The battle lasted 3 hours and ended with every criminal either dead or in federal custody. Rick's precision shooting accounted for 7 kills, but his greatest satisfaction came from capturing the operations coordinator alive. You're going to tell federal agents everything. Rick informed the wounded criminal. Every name, every location, every detail of your organization. You're going to destroy your own people to save your worthless life. Go to hell, Marine. Rick's smile was arctic cold. I've been there. Now it's your turn. Chapter 6. The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. The Battle of Millbrook, as federal agents dubbed it, had destroyed the Bassett family's operational capabilities in Ohio. 23 criminals dead, 47 arrested, and evidence linking the organization to over 200 unsolved crimes. But victory carried unexpected consequences for Rick and his family. The media attention was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, news crews from across the Midwest descended on Millbrook to cover the story of a former Marine who'd single-handedly dismantled a criminal empire. Rick's military record, his successful business, and his family's betrayal became national news. War hero defends family against corruption, read the headlines. But Rick knew the attention made his family more vulnerable, not less. Criminal organizations across the country now viewed him as a threat to their operations. Federal protection could only extend so far. Hannah adapted to their new reality with disturbing ease. The 8-year-old understood they were in danger and accepted security measures that would traumatize most children. She learned to identify potential threats, follow escape protocols, and operate communications equipment with military precision. "Daddy," she said one morning over breakfast, "are the bad people still coming?" "Some of them," Rick answered honestly. "But we're ready for them." Hannah nodded seriously. "Good. They shouldn't have tried to hurt us." Rick saw his own determination reflected in his daughter's green eyes and realized she'd inherited more than tactical intelligence. She developed the warrior mindset necessary for survival. Part of him felt proud. Part of him mourned the innocence she'd lost. Molly's federal debriefing revealed the true scope of Terry's criminal network. The corrupt cop hadn't just been taking bribes. He'd been recruiting other law enforcement officers, establishing cells of criminal activity in multiple states, and planning to expand into human trafficking and drug distribution. "Your wife provided crucial intelligence," Oliver reported during one of their secure meetings. "We've identified over 60 corrupt officials, 12 criminal organizations, and evidence of federal crimes dating back 15 years. She's probably saved hundreds of lives." And Terry, facing life without parole on federal charges. His cooperation won't save him. He planned to murder a child. Even criminal organizations have limits. But Rick's satisfaction was tempered by new intelligence about remaining threats. The Bassett family's destruction had created a power vacuum that other criminal organizations sought to fill. 3 separate crime families were now operating in Ohio, each viewing Rick as either a potential ally or a target for elimination. The first approach came from the Cunningham family, a Detroit-based organization seeking to expand into Ohio. Their representative, a well-dressed man named Reginald Cunningham, arrived at Rick's office with an offer of partnership. "Mr. Frazier," Cunningham said, settling into a chair across from Rick's desk, "you've demonstrated remarkable capabilities. My organization could use someone with your skills." "I'm not interested in criminal activities," Rick replied coldly. "Who said anything about crime?" Cunningham smiled. "Security consulting, protection services, intelligence gathering, all legitimate businesses. The fact that our clients sometimes operate outside conventional legal boundaries is irrelevant." Rick studied the man across from him, recognizing the predatory intelligence of a career criminal. Cunningham wasn't making an offer. He was issuing a subtle threat. "Let me be clear," Rick said, his voice carrying the authority of command. "I killed 23 of your competitors. I'll kill you just as easily if you threaten my family." Cunningham's smile faltered. "Mr. Frazier, I think you misunderstand." "No, a misunderstanding." Rick leaned forward. "You have 60 seconds to leave my office. After that, I treat you as a hostile target." The criminal left quickly, but Rick knew the encounter had established dangerous precedent. Word would spread that Frederick Frazier couldn't be bought, couldn't be intimidated, and wouldn't tolerate any threats to his family. Some organizations would respect those boundaries. Others would view them as challenges to overcome. The second approach came from federal agencies seeking to recruit Rick's capabilities. Oliver Farrell served as intermediary for discussions about Rick joining various task forces focused on organized crime, domestic terrorism, and international security threats. "Your tactical expertise could save lives," Oliver explained. Working with us would provide official protection for your family while utilizing your skills against legitimate targets. Define legitimate, Rick said. Terrorists, foreign agents, criminal organizations that threaten national security. People like Terry Snyder? Oliver nodded. Exactly like Terry Snyder. Rick considered the offer carefully. Federal employment would provide resources, legal protection, and official sanction for activities that currently operated in gray areas. But it would also limit his ability to protect his family using methods that exceeded government authorization. I'll consider it, Rick said finally. But my family comes first. Always. The third approach was the most dangerous. Criminal organizations seeking revenge for the Bassett family's destruction. These weren't business propositions or recruitment offers. They were assassination attempts designed to restore criminal prestige by eliminating the Marine who'd humiliated their operations. The first attempt came at Hannah's school. Rick's security team detected surveillance vehicles positioned around the building during school hours. The Watchers weren't planning immediate attack. They were gathering intelligence about Hannah's schedule, security procedures, and potential vulnerabilities. Rick's response was swift and brutal. He tracked the surveillance team to their safe house and eliminated all 3 men with tactical precision. No warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. Anyone who targeted his daughter forfeited their right to live. But each successful defense generated new threats. Criminal organizations began viewing Rick as a high-value target whose elimination would enhance their reputations. The man who destroyed the Bassett family became a prize worth pursuing. Rick realized he was fighting a war that couldn't be won through defensive measures. Every criminal he killed generated more enemies. Every threat he eliminated created others. His family would never be safe as long as criminal organizations viewed them as profitable targets. The solution required changing the fundamental equation. Instead of defending against criminal attacks, Rick would eliminate the attackers before they could strike. Preemptive warfare, conducted with the precision and ruthlessness that had made him one of the Marine Corps' most decorated warriors. I'm going hunting, Rick informed Oliver during their next meeting. What does that mean? It means every criminal organization that threatens my family will be systematically destroyed. Not arrested, not prosecuted, eliminated. Completely and permanently. Oliver looked troubled. Rick, that's vigilante justice. It's illegal, dangerous, and likely to get you killed. Terry Snyder was illegal. His criminal network was dangerous. And they tried to kill my daughter. Rick's voice carried the finality of absolute determination. I gave them chances to leave us alone. Now they face consequences. Rick's transformation from defender to predator marked a new phase in his war against organized crime. He would no longer wait for criminals to threaten his family. He would hunt them down with the systematic efficiency that had made Marines feared worldwide. The hunter had become the hunted, but Frederick Frazier intended to be the last man standing when the shooting stopped. Chapter 7. The Predator Unleashed. Rick's transition from defender to hunter required resources that exceeded his security business capabilities. Fortunately, his military contacts included personnel specializing in exactly the kind of operations he now planned to conduct. Within weeks, Sentinel Solutions had quietly expanded to include former special operations personnel, intelligence specialists, and weapons experts who understood the difference between law enforcement and warfare. Jeremiah Stewart became Rick's operational commander, coordinating intelligence, gathering, and target acquisition. Dave Patterson handled logistics and equipment procurement. Oliver Farrell provided federal intelligence while maintaining plausible deniability about Rick's more aggressive operations. Their first target was the Cunningham family in Detroit. Reginald Cunningham's business proposition had been intelligence gathering, not negotiation. His organization was already planning Hannah's kidnapping as leverage to force Rick's cooperation. They've rented a house 12 miles from Hannah's school, Jeremiah reported during their weekly briefing. 6 men, professional kidnappers, equipped with surveillance gear and restraint equipment. They're planning to grab her during the field trip to the Science Museum next week. Rick studied the photographs of the house, noting sight lines, escape routes, and defensive positions. The criminals had chosen well, isolated location, multiple exit routes, and minimal civilian presence. Under normal circumstances, it would be an ideal base for criminal operations. But Rick wasn't planning a normal response. How many? Rick asked. Total organization? 43 known associates, 17 core family members, and connections to 3 other crime families. They generate approximately $8 million annually through drug distribution, human trafficking, and protection rackets. Assets: 12 legitimate businesses, 6 properties, and bank accounts in 4 states. Federal agencies have been trying to prosecute them for 8 years, but witnesses keep disappearing. Rick nodded. The Cunningham family represented exactly the kind of criminal organization that thrived by intimidating law enforcement and eliminating opposition. They'd calculated that threatening his daughter would force his cooperation, never considering that they'd signed their own death warrants. Operational timeline: 72 hours for complete elimination, Jeremiah replied. Hit the safe house first, then systematically work through their hierarchy. Leave no survivors who might reorganize later. Rick approved the plan with military precision. This wouldn't be a law enforcement operation focused on arrests and prosecutions. It would be systematic elimination of hostile forces threatening his family. The assault on the safe house began at 0300 hours. Rick's team moved with special operations precision, using night vision and suppressed weapons to eliminate sentries before they could raise alarms. The 6 kidnappers died in their sleep, never knowing their intended victim's father had become their executioner. But Rick's vengeance extended beyond immediate threats. Over the following week, Cunningham family associates began disappearing. Drug dealers found dead in apparent gang violence. Money launderers discovered murdered in their homes. Criminal operatives eliminated with precision that suggested professional assassins rather than rival gang activity. Reginald Cunningham himself lasted 4 days before Rick cornered him in a Detroit parking garage. The crime boss had surrounded himself with bodyguards and electronic security, but Rick's military training made such precautions irrelevant. You killed my people, Cunningham accused, his voice shaking despite attempts to project authority. You threatened my daughter, Rick replied calmly. Did you expect different consequences? This is business. You can't just murder. Rick's knife into the conversation and Cunningham's life. The crime boss died knowing that Frederick Frazier didn't distinguish between criminal threats and enemy combatants. Both faced identical fates. News of the Cunningham family's destruction spread quickly through criminal networks nationwide. Within days, Rick received messages from other organizations either offering alliance or demanding he cease operations in their territories. His response was consistent: leave his family alone or face complete annihilation. Some criminal leaders interpreted this as bluster. The Romano family from Cleveland decided Rick's reputation was exaggerated and began planning their own operations against his family. They lasted 6 days before Rick eliminated their leadership and scattered their surviving associates. But Rick's success attracted unwanted attention from law enforcement agencies investigating the sudden wave of criminal deaths across the Midwest. Federal agents couldn't directly link the killings to Rick, but the timing and precision suggested military-trained operators rather than rival gang violence. You're starting to generate heat, Oliver warned during one of their clandestine meetings. My superiors are asking questions about the sudden reduction in organized crime activity. Tell them criminals are killing each other over territory disputes, Rick suggested. That might work for a few more weeks, but eventually someone's going to connect the dots. When that happens, you'll be facing federal investigation instead of criminal threats. Rick considered this development carefully. He'd always known his war against organized crime would eventually attract law enforcement attention. The question was whether he could eliminate enough threats before federal agencies interfered with his operations. How long do I have? Maybe a month before formal investigation begins. After that, you'll need to either go underground or find legal protection for your activities. Rick's solution was characteristically direct: accelerate operations to eliminate remaining threats before federal oversight became prohibitive. If law enforcement wanted to investigate him for destroying criminal organizations, they could do so after his family was safe from retaliation. The next 3 weeks became known in criminal circles as the cleansing. Rick's team systematically eliminated every organized crime figure who'd expressed interest in his family or operations. Drug dealers, human traffickers, corrupt officials, and criminal enforcers died so quickly that surviving criminals began fleeing Ohio rather than risk confronting the Marine who'd become their personal nightmare. Hannah adapted to their increasingly militarized lifestyle with disturbing ease. She learned to recognize surveillance, follow escape protocols, and communicate with Rick's security team using military terminology. Her childhood innocence had been replaced by tactical awareness that rivaled trained professionals. "Daddy," she said one evening as Rick tucked her into bed, "when will the bad people stop coming?" "Soon, sweetheart," Rick promised. "Very soon." "Good," Hannah replied seriously. "I want to go back to being a normal kid." Rick's heart clenched as he realized his 8-year-old daughter was ready to sacrifice her childhood for family security. She understood the stakes better than most adults and accepted whatever measures were necessary for survival. But Hannah's words crystallized Rick's ultimate objective, creating a world where his daughter could grow up without fear of criminal retaliation. That required more than defensive measures or tactical elimination of threats. It required fundamentally changing how criminal organizations viewed the Frazier family. Rick's final phase would send a message that transcended individual threats or specific criminal operations. It would establish a precedent so brutal and comprehensive that no future criminal would dare threaten his family again. The Predator was about to become a legend. Chapter 8: The Legend Born. Rick's final operation began with intelligence that changed everything. Oliver Farrell's federal contacts had uncovered a coordination meeting scheduled for criminal organizations across the Midwest. 7 families were gathering to discuss the Frazier problem and coordinate a unified response to his systematic elimination of their associates. "They're calling it the Toledo Conference," Oliver explained, spreading surveillance photos across Rick's desk. 63 confirmed attendees, including every major crime boss between Chicago and Pittsburgh. "They're planning to pool resources for one massive strike against your family." Rick studied the photographs, recognizing faces from FBI wanted posters and intelligence files. These weren't street criminals or minor operators. They were the leadership of organized crime across multiple states. Their gathering represented the largest concentration of criminal authority in decades. When and where? Tomorrow night. Warehouse complex in Toledo, chosen for isolation and security. They've hired military contractors for protection, established multiple perimeters, and planned escape routes in case of law enforcement interference. Rick smiled coldly. The criminals were preparing for a meeting that would define their future operations against his family. They'd never considered that their gathering might become their massacre. "Perfect," Rick said. "How many of our people can we mobilize in 24 hours? Jeremiah Stewart, who'd been reviewing tactical assessments, looked up sharply. "Rick, you can't be serious. 63 targets in one location, military-grade security, backup from multiple crime families. This isn't a surgical strike. This is full-scale warfare." "Exactly." Rick's determination was absolute. "They're gathering to plan my family's destruction. I'm going to ensure they never have another chance." Oliver looked troubled. "Rick, attacking that meeting would be mass murder. Even if you succeed, federal law enforcement would have no choice but to prosecute. This goes beyond vigilante justice into domestic terrorism." "These people plan to kidnap and murder my 8-year-old daughter," Rick replied. "They've forfeited any right to legal protection." Rick's team spent 18 hours planning an operation that would have challenged a military special forces unit. The warehouse complex offered limited approach routes, multiple defensive positions, and professional security that exceeded anything they'd previously encountered. Success would require precision timing, overwhelming firepower, and willingness to accept casualties. But Rick had advantages the criminals couldn't anticipate. His security business provided access to military equipment, surveillance technology, and weapon systems that exceeded most law enforcement capabilities. More importantly, his team consisted of warriors motivated by more than money. They were fighting to protect one of their own. The assault began at 2,100 hours with simultaneous strikes against the conference's security perimeters. Dave Patterson's explosive charges eliminated guard posts, while sniper teams engaged rooftop sentries. Within minutes, the warehouse complex transformed from secure meeting location to active battleground. All call signs, Rick's voice carried over encrypted communications. Time to send a message. The criminal leadership found themselves trapped in a building designed to keep law enforcement out, but equally effective at preventing escape. Rick's team moved through the complex with military precision, systematically eliminating targets while avoiding civilian casualties. "Please," one crime boss begged as Rick approached his hiding position. "I have family, children." "So do I," Rick replied, and pulled the trigger. The Toledo conference lasted 47 minutes. When federal agents arrived, drawn by reports of sustained gunfire, they found 63 dead criminals and evidence of the most sophisticated organized crime gathering in American history. Rick's team had disappeared into the night, leaving behind only bodies and a message written in blood. This is what happens to people who threaten the Frazier family. The aftermath transformed Rick from regional threat to national legend. Criminal organizations across the country began referring to him as the Ghost, a former Marine who could eliminate entire crime families without leaving evidence for prosecution. Stories spread about his tactical capabilities, his ruthless efficiency, and his absolute dedication to protecting his daughter. More importantly, the Toledo massacre established a precedent that fundamentally changed how organized crime viewed Rick and his family. No criminal leader was willing to risk confronting the man who'd single-handedly eliminated the Midwest's most powerful crime bosses. "Congratulations," Oliver said during their final meeting. "You've achieved something law enforcement couldn't accomplish in decades. Criminals are actually afraid to operate in Ohio." "Good," Rick replied. "That was the objective. But you realize this can't continue, right? Federal agencies are launching full investigations. Even with my protection, you'll eventually face prosecution for mass murder." Rick nodded. He'd always known his war against organized crime would have legal consequences. The question was whether those consequences mattered compared to his family's safety. "I'm retiring from active operations," Rick announced. "Sentinel Solutions will return to legitimate security consulting. My war is over." Oliver looked surprised. Just like that. The message has been sent. Every criminal in America knows what happens to people who threaten my family. That protection is worth any legal consequences. Rick's retirement from active warfare marked the beginning of a new chapter for his family. Hannah could finally attend school without bodyguards, play with friends without security protocols, and begin recovering the childhood innocence that criminal threats had stolen. But Rick remained vigilant. His intelligence network continued monitoring potential threats, and his weapons cache remained ready for immediate deployment. He'd achieved peace through overwhelming violence, but maintaining that peace required constant preparation for war. "Daddy," Hannah said one evening as they walked through downtown Millbrook, "are we safe now?" Rick looked around at the town that had become his battlefield, noting the federal surveillance teams that still monitored his activities and the criminal informants who reported his movements to organizations considering future operations. "Yes, sweetheart," he said finally. "We're safe." And for the first time in months, Rick believed it was true. Chapter 9. The Price of Peace. 6 months after the Toledo massacre, Rick Frazier's life had achieved the stability he'd fought so brutally to secure. Hannah attended school without security escorts, played with friends without surveillance protocols, and demonstrated the resilience that made Rick proud of her strength while mourning her lost innocence. Sentinel Solutions thrived as a legitimate security business, drawing clients who valued Rick's reputation for absolute protection. Corporate executives, federal judges, and wealthy families sought services from the man who'd proven capable of eliminating any threat to his client's safety. Rick's military precision and tactical expertise commanded premium prices. But more importantly, they provided legal cover for maintaining the resources necessary to protect his family. Oliver Farrell had successfully misdirected federal investigations away from Rick's activities. The Toledo Massacre was officially classified as a territorial war between rival crime families, with forensic evidence conveniently destroyed in a warehouse fire that eliminated potential criminal prosecution. Rick's team had vanished like ghosts, leaving only dead criminals and questions that federal agencies chose not to pursue too aggressively. "You've achieved something remarkable," Oliver commented during one of their periodic meetings. "Organized crime activity in Ohio has dropped 70% since Toledo. You've single-handedly accomplished what law enforcement couldn't achieve in decades." Rick nodded, but his satisfaction was tempered by ongoing vigilance. Peace was a temporary condition that required constant maintenance. Criminal organizations still monitored his activities, federal agencies maintained discreet surveillance, and new threats emerged regularly from unexpected directions. The first test of his new status came from an international source. The Volkov crime family, recently arrived from Eastern Europe, began establishing operations in Cleveland without realizing they were entering Rick's sphere of influence. Their initial activities, drug distribution and human trafficking, didn't directly threaten his family, but their expansion plans included eliminating potential competitors. "They're asking questions about you," Jeremiah Stewart reported during a routine briefing. "Specifically, they want to know if your reputation is real or manufactured." "What kind of questions?" "Whether you're actually capable of the things attributed to you, or if you're just benefiting from exaggerated stories. They think American criminals are weak compared to their European counterparts." Rick considered this development carefully. The Volkov family's skepticism represented exactly the kind of challenge that could destabilize the peace he'd established. Other criminal organizations were watching to see if he would respond to international threats with the same ruthlessness he'd demonstrated against domestic enemies. "Arrange a meeting," Rick decided. "Let's educate them about American hospitality." The meeting took place in neutral territory, a restaurant downtown Millbrook that Rick controlled through surveillance and tactical positioning. Viktor Volkov, the family patriarch, arrived with 2 bodyguards and an interpreter, clearly expecting negotiations rather than confrontation. "Mr. Frazier," Victor began through his translator, "we understand you have established certain territorial claims in this region. My organization seeks accommodation for mutually profitable activities." "What kind of activities?" Rick asked. "Import, export, financial services, entertainment venues, legitimate businesses that generate substantial revenue." Rick recognized the euphemisms: drug smuggling, money laundering, and prostitution. The Volkov family was offering to share profits in exchange for operating without interference, never realizing they were negotiating with someone who viewed their existence as a threat requiring elimination. "I have a counter-proposal," Rick said calmly. "You have 24 hours to leave Ohio. Anyone who remains after that deadline will be considered an enemy combatant." Victor's expression darkened as the translator conveyed Rick's words. "Mr. Frazier, I don't think you understand who you're dealing with." "I understand perfectly. You're criminals who think geographic distance makes you immune to consequences. You're wrong." The meeting ended with Victor storming out, clearly believing Rick's reputation was exaggerated. The Russian crime boss had operated in environments where negotiations were conducted through violence and intimidation. He'd never encountered someone who viewed criminal existence as justification for immediate execution. Victor's response was swift and predictable. 3 days later, surveillance devices appeared around Rick's property and Hannah's school. Volkov operatives began gathering intelligence about family routines, security procedures, and potential vulnerabilities. They were preparing for either kidnapping or assassination, depending on which option would better demonstrate their dominance. Rick's counter-response was even swifter. The Volkov safe house in Cleveland was hit at 0200 hours by a team that moved with military precision. Suppressed weapons eliminated sentries before they could raise alarms. Explosive charges breached defensive positions, and systematic room-clearing techniques ensured no survivors remained to report the attack. Viktor Volkov himself died in his bedroom. His bodyguards eliminated seconds before Rick's knife found the crime boss's throat. The Russian's final words were in his native language, but Rick's translator provided the meaning. "This is impossible." "Nothing's impossible," Rick replied. "Some things just require proper motivation." The Volkov family's destruction sent ripples through international criminal networks. European crime families began warning their American counterparts about the Marine who killed with surgical precision, while domestic organizations used Rick's expanding reputation to justify avoiding Ohio entirely. But Rick's greatest challenge came from an unexpected source: Hannah herself. His daughter had adapted to their militarized lifestyle with disturbing ease, but her 8th birthday brought questions that Rick hadn't anticipated. Hannah was old enough to understand that other families didn't live surrounded by security systems, that other fathers didn't disappear for days on business trips that generated no visible income, and that other children didn't practice escape protocols instead of playing games. "Daddy," Hannah said one evening as Rick reviewed security reports, "why do people keep trying to hurt us?" Rick looked up from his files, studying his daughter's serious expression. Hannah had inherited her mother's intelligence and her father's tactical instincts, making her far more perceptive than most adults realized. "Because some people make bad choices," Rick answered carefully, "and those choices have consequences." "But why do you have to be the one who gives them consequences?" The question stopped Rick cold. Hannah wasn't asking about criminal threats or security measures. She was questioning the fundamental morality of his actions. His 8-year-old daughter had reached the same ethical concerns that federal agents and military commanders struggled to address. "Because if I don't, they'll hurt innocent people," Rick said finally. "Sometimes protecting family requires making difficult decisions." Hannah nodded solemnly, but Rick could see her processing implications that no child should need to consider. His daughter was growing up in a world where violence was normal, where death was routine, and where her father's reputation depended on his willingness to kill anyone who threatened their safety. "Understand, Daddy," Hannah said quietly, "but I wish things were different." Rick's heart clenched as he realized the full cost of his war against organized crime. He'd achieved the security he'd fought for, eliminated the threats that had endangered his family, and established a reputation that would protect them for years to come. But that victory had required sacrificing Hannah's innocence, normalizing violence, and teaching his daughter that survival depended on her father's willingness to kill. "So do I, sweetheart," Rick admitted. "So do I." That night, Rick made a decision that would define the rest of their lives. He would maintain the security infrastructure necessary to protect his family, but he would also work to give Hannah the normal childhood she deserved. No more tactical training, no more security protocols, no more exposure to the violence that had become routine in their lives. Frederick Frazier had won his war against organized crime, but the victory had cost more than he'd anticipated. Peace was possible, but only through accepting that some battles scarred the very people they were fought to protect. As Rick watched Hannah sleep, he made a final promise. No matter what future threats emerged, his daughter would never again pay the price for his enemy's mistakes. The warrior could rest, but the father's vigilance would never end. Epilogue. 2 years later, Millbrook had become known as the safest town in Ohio. Crime statistics showed remarkable improvements, property values had soared, and federal agencies quietly credited the Frazier effect for transforming the region's criminal landscape. Rick's security business thrived, but he focused on legitimate protection services rather than offensive operations. His reputation ensured that potential criminals avoided his territory, while his wealth allowed Hannah to attend private school and pursue the normal childhood activities that had been impossible during their war years. Hannah grew into a remarkably mature young lady who understood her family's unique history, but refused to let it define her future. She excelled academically, participated in school activities, and formed friendships with children who would never know how close they'd come to living in a town controlled by organized crime. Molly served 18 months in federal prison for conspiracy charges, but her cooperation with investigators had helped dismantle criminal networks across multiple states. Upon release, she moved to California, maintaining limited contact with Hannah through supervised visits. Rick had forgiven her for practical reasons. Hannah needed to know her mother, but their marriage was permanently ended. Terry Snyder died in federal prison, killed by inmates who discovered his plans to murder a child. Rick felt no satisfaction in the corrupt cop's death, only relief that one more threat to his family had been eliminated. The legend of Frederick Frazier continued growing in criminal circles, becoming a